Part 322. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3225. Seeing Jia Yan's clone, several domain lords were not surprised and relaxed. After all, Jia Yan is also the lower-level combat power of the three major territory lords. If some messengers from the central star field of the Milky Way were to scare him into the so-called lower-level territory lords, wouldn't it be lower than what they imagined? Too much. Fortunately, this is not the case. Lord Jia Yan, they are certainly confident, because they are coming from an alliance of 5 forces, and 2 of them have friendships with Lord Jiji and Lord Shuxing. They are not close friends, but they have been in the central star field of the Milky Way. We have some contacts, and according to what they said, the most powerful people behind those 2 families should be stronger than the 2 masters of Jiji Shuxing. This makes sense. The 5 powerful men should be the lower level of the 5 domain lords, or even 1 or 2 more. The energy of such a combination is extraordinary. Even Jia Yan and Jiqiao here are only 3. It's just the lower level of the domain lord. This is not to mention the non-ordinary domain lords who may be among the opponent's personnel. It would be really scary if they had a few people who had traveled a long way to heaven. Jia Yan was still that old god, and asked with a pair of black eyes slightly seriously, "Have you investigated these 5 forces? Do the strongest among them have subspace abilities, or are there any who can limit subspace? Does the ability exist?" Several high-level domain lords were obviously well prepared. Today's trade area, after decades of development, is no longer what it used to be. Even many merchants from the galaxy's central star region have extended their tentacles here. It may not be certain that it was these people who passed the information to the central star field of the Milky Way and attracted the powerful people. And these merchants have become the best channel for senior executives to obtain information. It is said that these 5 major forces are headed by the Xiaoming force, and the strength of this force is unprecedentedly powerful. There may be a total of 3 to 5 domain masters and post-level masters in the force. Among them, there may be subspace innate abilities. Of course, these are just rumors circulating among merchants, and the truth cannot be determined. As for the other few, their strengths are different, but among their forces, it should be rare to have more than 2 domain lords and lower-level masters. When it comes to the personal strength of these masters, I can forgive us for not being able to do anything about it. After all, it is very rare for the masters of the lower-level domain masters to take action, and even if there is a confrontation, I am afraid that ordinary merchants will not be able to detect the outcome of the battle. Black God Jia Yan's face became obviously more solemn. Especially the Xiaoming force. It is actually possible to have more than 3 lower-level territory lords, so even if they are placed in the center of the Milky Way, they are definitely not a small force. If you lose to the 4 major superstars, they will not be weak forces. At least they will have no problem dominating one side. And such a force actually came to our door. Thinking about it, he suddenly realized. Don't worry. These forces are not here to compete for ordinary interests. From now on, you should do your job well. I will personally go over to receive and deal with these envoys. There won't be any big problems. Jia Yan's still unhurried attitude made the senior management feel relieved. If even Jia Yan's clone is confused or shows a flustered expression, they will really get into trouble. Anyone who suddenly hears that there are more than 5 lower-ranking territory lords who have noticed the area of interest they are in will be frightened. Fortunately, Jia Yan, who is the backbone, is not confused, so they will not be too nervous. There is a tall man holding up the sky when it falls, and Jia Yan is obviously the tall man. "Dad, this is the reason why I picked you up. I originally thought that you should be here in person, but I didn't expect." Jiarong and the Black God clone looked at each other, and then quickly moved away, for fear that this person Dad's clone blamed himself for underestimating his strength. The clone of the Black God patted his son's shoulder angrily. Not to mention, the clone was shorter than his son, who was about 1.8 meters tall. The son looked much more reliable than his father, who had the same young appearance. "You boy, please practice hard for me. Just leave this kind of matter to your father and me." Tisk, Jia 11 was listening, and couldn't help but be surprised when she saw that her father, who was usually quite strict, looked like a child in his grandfather's eyes. The clone did not immediately go to meet this group of foreign guests who came from afar. Instead, under the arrangement, they entered the rest area in a secret way, and found two more people, Edisha and Leda, to train for 2 more days. During these 2 days, he not only cultivated his spirit, but also asked Edisha Rita to solve some key problems in the formation. It's time for the Geo family to have another top supporter, although this supporter is still me. There was sadness in Black God's eyes. Now is the time for him to think about future generations. For more than 100 years ago, he was free and at ease, but he was also like a rootless duckweed, a little uncomfortable. After many years, he also wanted to try the feeling of starting a family and starting a business. So far, it's pretty good, nothing too much of a drag, and it's certainly much better than the original crisis on Earth. At that time, there was a flash of lightning and thunder, a thunderbolt, boom. The gavel slapped on the table, making a loud noise. Everyone in the hall listened. There were many humanoid life forms, but most of them were non-human life forms, and there was even a giant strong man with a head of more than 10 kilometers. But they all listened with great interest. A giant mosquito foot that looked like a pillar of heaven, burning with raging flames, fell from the sky and burned the master of the domain master until he screamed and lost his voice for a moment. Silence was heard from below. It turns out that this is some kind of entertainment that has just begun to become popular. Today's trading area has many races, and entertainment methods are also rich and colorful. In many civilizations, there is a stand-up comedy style similar to this, but the storyteller on the stage at this time is more of a storytelling method inherited from the Earth. He is a storyteller from Earth. And he was a traveler who spent a lot of money and went through countless hardships to get here from the Earth alone. After arriving here, he transformed into a storyteller on Earth and accumulated quite a reputation. It can be said that he himself is an adventurer with some legendary qualifications. What we are talking about now is the scene where the villain wants to do evil, but the Mosquito ancestor is thousands of light years away and saves him. When aliens listen to books, it is naturally impossible to listen to the romance of the 3 kingdoms, but they also have their own feelings of worshipping the strong. After many attempts, the storyteller finally determined the Mosquito ancestor body. That is to regard Mr. Jia Yan as a key figure, or to deify him and turn him into a master behind the scenes. He can often determine the winning chance of the palace. The real protagonist is either a descendant of the Wang family, or someone who has studied underworld. The master of Bideo. Yes, the Wang family is a metaphor for the Jia family, and the black and white paths are a metaphor for the yin and yang paths. Needless to say, because of this metaphor, which is also filled with many real stories, the Mosquito ancestor he created became extremely vivid, won heavy rewards from many listeners, and became famous for a while. There was also a trade zone film and television company that came to us and said they wanted to remake the movie. However, everyone is holding on to the red line, that is, the content and plot of the Geo family cannot be overly hinted at, and ridicule or negative mention of the Geo family is not allowed. The last guy who dared to criticize Jia Yan online like this is still squatting in prison and eating prison food. This paragraph is really good. I had also heard about that battle. I didn't expect it to be really exciting. A 300-meter stone man-like creature was sitting underneath, his blood boiling with excitement as he listened. He wished he could transform into the Mosquito ancestor and rush to kill the enemy 1,000 light years away. There was a female life form next to him that resembled a human being. There was some arrogance in her expression. She sneered after hearing the words, "Your Excellency, You are willing to believe these words. Traveling for thousands of light years in a day, even in the central star field, no one may be able to do it. You should also have venerable level strength. Why are you so unwise? The stone man's stone eyebrows stood up and he shouted, do you dare to question the Mosquito ancestor? Hey, what I'm questioning is not the character in the story, but the prototype. You said you heard about that battle. It must be because of that Jia Yan. A similar incident happened before, but it was just told by the storyteller zoomed in. Seeing that the guy next to him repeatedly looked down on Jia Yan, the stone man stood up and said, what's magnifying? That is an unshakable fact. Countless people in our trade area have witnessed this battle. If you do this again, I will report it. The police are here to arrest you for spreading rumors. The woman smiled lazily and said, they don't dare. If you have the ability, let them come. Okay, I'll call the police right now. Shitu was so angry that he wanted to take out the smart brain communication. An arm pinched the daughter's earlobe violently, causing her to cry out in pain, and then the owner of the arm smiled humbly and apologized, I'm sorry, my sister is a little careless with her words. I will apologize to you on her behalf. Please also don't call the police, adults don't remember villains' faults. Only then did the stone man put down Hineo with a groan, if you hadn't spoken for her, I would have called the police and had her locked up for a few days. Discipline your sister from now on. Yes, yes. The owner of the arm pulled the woman out of the huge storytelling room where the storyteller was, and the two of them pulled and pulled to a street corner. Stop pulling, my ears are going to fall off. The woman slapped the man's palm away. Sister, what have you gained? The man is really the elder brother of the woman. The two of them are not fighting like before, but look arrogant. The place they came from was an extremely powerful place, and they looked down upon such a small and peaceful trading area, where even a senior domain lord level person could hardly see it. Hee, what I learned is that this trading area is just a place where children play house, and everything is not standardized. It is obvious that women disdain this trade area at all. That's not entirely true. Didn't you hear their pursuit of that Jia Yan? Even if this person is not as amazing as the rumors say, he is by no means an easy person to deal with. The woman still had the same dismissive look. What's surprising? I can understand the storyteller just now, but someone next to me actually took Jia Yan's story of traveling through 1,000 light years seriously. I think Jia Yan was taking advantage of it. The characteristics of this place are backwardness and ignorance, and they are brainwashing the general public in a way that fools them. Such liars are not experts at all, and I don't believe them anyway. The man hesitated to speak, thought for a while and nodded, that's right. If the guys who do these little tricks are not on the stage, I'm afraid that such people will be difficult to deal with. It seems that the people we are sending out this time also have some master, but not too strong. If the other party takes advantage of this and causes a dispute, it will probably be very difficult in the future. You don't need to be an expert. I think that guy is just pretending to be a senior territory lord in the lower ranks of territory lords. Otherwise, why use those little tricks to win over people's hearts? In short, we have to be extremely careful. In addition, the identity of the two of us, brother and sister, must be hidden. Otherwise, we may be taken advantage of by someone with ulterior motives, and we may be in danger. Dad, those guests are inside. Well, you can come in with me. On this day, Black God Jia Yan, who had recovered from his training, got rid of his tired state, and entered the conference room with his son, grandson, and little Edisha, who was looking around. Originally, Jia 11 was asked to wait outside, but since the boy had to follow him life and death, Jia Yan had no choice but to think that it was time to let him see the big scene, so he agreed. Xiao 11, Senior, let me tell you, when meeting people, you should remain calm. It's best to keep your expression unchanged even if the mountain collapses. People who chatter can easily be looked down upon. Adisha was seriously telling Gia 11 some precautions. Gia 11 wanted to laugh but didn't dare, so she could only hold back a painful smile and nod. In the conference room, there was a circle of people waiting. Black God Jia Yan glanced over and found that among the main people sitting opposite, two of the people sitting in the seats were actually human-shaped and about the same size as humans. In the entire galaxy, human-shaped life forms account for about 1/10, and within this 1/10, there are probably less than half of those who do not increase in size even after their strength increases, so they can be seen here. The size is similar to that of Earthlings, which is quite surprising. Especially after knowing that the other party is from the central star field of the Milky Way, I can't help but sigh at the magic of life. Such similar life can exist even though we are tens of thousands of light years apart. Is this Lord Jia Yan? Nice to meet you. A dog-headed man stood up from his position and traveled more than 30 kilometers as soon as he stood up. Other people who met also stood up and expressed their respect. None of them were surprised by Jia Yan's appearance, because the meeting preparer had already informed them that Jia Yan was just a clone. I'm extremely sorry for keeping you all waiting for so long. Jia Yan entered the venue with a smile, and then sat down on the main seat. The guests also took their seats. The farthest ones are about 1,000 kilometers apart. After all, several people are dozens of kilometers away. It's not even 1,000 kilometers away. On the Jia Yan side, in addition to the Jia family members, there were also several leading figures from the trade zone who were symbolically present at the meeting. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3226. I wonder what the conditions are for you to apply to join this trade zone this time. Can you tell me again? Jia Yan gets straight to the point. The other party was obviously prepared. Immediately, an extra-human woman with a similar name to an Earthling stood up, flew hundreds of kilometers, came to Jia Yan, and respectfully handed over a document. Senior Jia Yan, please take a look. Here are the requirements and sincerity of our 5 major alliances. The other party's voice was very young, and his appearance was sweet and pleasant. But even though she was smiling, there was a feeling of indifference and repulsion from others. She was obviously used to being pampered. Yeah, more. Shen Jiayan took the document with a smile. Looking back, I saw Jia 11 sitting not far away, and I was dumbfounded. This silly boy is about to fall into beauty again. Jia Yan was too lazy to pay attention to his flirtatious grandson, and just read through the documents. And the woman didn't look back. She seemed to be taking advantage of the diplomatic opportunity to size up the people here. After seeing too much, she couldn't help but feel indifferent. For the Jia family, it is obvious that their strength is too weak. Jia Yan's clone seems to be inferior to Hidu, but she believes that it is at the level where adults are really famous, and the clone is definitely more than just the galaxy. Even if it becomes stronger, will it surpass ordinary domain lords? She didn't believe it at all. As for the Jia family, it's even more unsightly. The few people who were close were at the venerable level, and there was a little pervert who looked like a pig brother and was locked on him. She couldn't help but give him a sharp look. Unexpectedly, this guy seemed to be stimulated and stared at her more blatantly. She almost exploded because no matter who she was, she had never been so boldly rude. Just when she was about to erupt, Jia Yan made a sound first. He closed the documents, nodded slightly and said, "You asked me to read it. This matter, if there is no rush, we can discuss it in the long run." The woman happened to be feeling unwell. Without waiting for the powerful leaders to speak, she immediately said, "Senior, we have been waiting for this for a long time. How long do we need to discuss in the long term? Please make a decision, or you sent someone deliberately. The clone is just dragging." Xindo. A young man who looked similar to others in the distance blocked her next words. But it was already too late. Just as the woman said these words, she felt the wind blowing past her eyes, and a short-lived figure flashed past her. She felt a sudden coldness on the top of her head. Looking over again, it was a pretty girl with a pretty figure. She looked about 14 or 15 years old, quite cute. And she was holding a familiar thing in her hand, a hairpin that she always liked to wear in her hair as a decoration. You. His face suddenly turned cold. Error-free update at JHSSD. At the same time, I felt even more distraught in my heart. Mainly, even if she is not the most powerful genius, she still belongs to the top group, and her current strength has reached the level of a star. And her age is only in her 30s. This chapter is over, please click on the next page to continue. Although the appearance of the child who looks like a young girl may be suspected of concealing her age, in any case, she does not look like an old guy who is over 100 years old, but she can take away her hair without her noticing. Hairpin. Don't look at my master brother from your perspective. Aditya's young voice was full of chilling meaning. Xindo, come. The strongest person on the other side, sitting 3 kilometers away, a master whose strength was about the main level of the deep realm, said calmly. Yes, uncle. That man also has a humanoid appearance, but he is much older. Looking at Jia Yan at this time, everyone no longer has the slightest contempt. At that moment, he saw it really clearly. Clearly not trusted by everyone, this chapter is not finished yet. Chapter 8 Marriage come at. Warm reminder, to prevent incomplete content acquisition and text disorder, please do not use the browser, app, reading mode. The little girl in this story, from the seemingly weak star level, bursts out at a speed that would frighten ordinary owners. Taking off the hairpin was just a small way for her to let the visitors see the abilities around Jia Yan. Even a junior family member who appears to be a star has this ability, but what about the other seemingly ordinary people around Jia Yan? Maybe he is also a master who hides his strength. What's even more elusive is that this clone that looks like an Earthling is only about the galaxy level on the surface. What if it can also explode like a little girl? This lady should be the rumored Mystisha. People who are famous far and wide are not simple. The other party spoke with praise. Adisha Do, who retreated to his side, raised his eyebrows and understood. The name of Aditya is astonishing. At essence / Shuji the first mistake-free release. In this trade area, she has been in charge longer than Jia himself. The most famous battle is the use of weird formations and tactics to kill a strong man who entered the trade area while he was out. Defeated at the domain lord level. That was decades ago. Nowadays, Adisha's surface strength is faint and improved, but her private strength is considered by many to be even greater. But no one can tell clearly what the principle of the formation power used by Adisha and the others is. Only the Yin-Yang Dao disciples who occasionally go out can explain in detail the magic of formation cultivation. No wonder, when the little girl rushed out just now, she saw a circle flashing around her. Lost to such a person. Xiando's frustration suddenly diminished a lot. She was not even a star. Is it normal to lose to a master who could even defeat a domain master? Besides, according to the rumors, they asked for information about Adisha, and it was said that she was older than 100 years ago, so this little girl is a big sister much older than herself. Xiando immediately raised his head arrogantly. There were not a dozen young people present. Thank you, everyone, let's get back to the topic. If you want to work in our trading area, we can't agree all at once. Besides, you and other 5 major power alliances don't have any interests in this area, so why bother with our trading area? Black God Jia Yan was shocked and said slowly. It's not difficult. I don't want Lord Jia Yan to think about this matter carefully. After all, besides us, there will always be people who are interested in this place in the Milky Way Central Star region and other places. If you agree to wait today, maybe you can come back later. Yes, he is not so friendly, We also consider you. This chapter is not finished, please click on the next page to continue. Good guy, if you go straight up, you will be powerful. Of course Geo said what they said was true. If we don't give benefits to the other party and don't join the army of sharing benefits, we may have endless troubles in the future. It is connected to the other world and is the location of the only passage in the galaxy. Just such a gimmick is enough for many powerful domain masters who want to strengthen to come over like cats that have smelled a fishy smell. Ken, who is a junior territory lord, does not want to miss such an opportunity. It is simply impossible for them to resist the 3 or 2 powerful domain lords like Yi Kitty. To put it bluntly, even if Jia Yan became twice as strong, he might not be able to withstand such pressure. But resistance is not a thing of the future. It's still early. I'm sorry, you guys have given me the conditions, but there is nothing we can do directly yet. How about we talk about it later? This is about driving people away. Negotiations like this are never decided at once. It is normal for some big forces to talk about dozens or hundreds of people, not to mention such a major matter involving the struggle between the 10 territory lord queens. Okay, let's take our leave now. The tallest and most senior domain lord level man on the opposite side suddenly seemed to think of something after he stood up. He looked at the powerful human-looking capital territory master and said, Sister Xiando, you must have not married her yet. Just now I saw a young member of the Geo family who seemed to be attracted to Miss Xiando. This chapter is not finished yet. Chapter 8 Marriage come at. Warm reminder, to prevent incomplete content acquisition and text disorder, please do not use the browser, app, reading mode. Mu Xian, please prevent Miss Xiando from marrying this junior of the Geo family, so as to ease the conflict between us. Although this was said in a deliberately lowered voice, who was there? All top masters, even Jia knew everything about it. Suddenly, he became very energetic. The charming and beautiful woman on the other side was about to get married and leave, but when she suddenly heard such a proposal, her beautiful eyes widened. The senior domain master level master thought for a while and nodded. It's not impossible for me to go back and discuss this matter with my brother. Xiando's face suddenly became extremely ugly and turned gloomy. First update at. She thought that by accompanying the adults to the edge of the galaxy to see the world, she might have sold herself. She is only 30 years old. Judging from the current average lifespan in the central region of the Milky Way and the attitude towards children of this age, she has not even reached the age of girlhood. She is still a little girl, but her strength is growing a little faster. Come back to the office. Jia 11 had a calm face and was determined to follow him into the office. After entering, without waiting for Haixinyan to explain anything to the others, he rushed to Jia Yan with an excited expression, Grandpa, can Xian Xiao be my boss? Jia Yan looked at his grandson with a half-smile. This boy is older than the girl at home. How many years older is he? Yet he is still so uncontrollable. Go away, your father has something serious to discuss. Hiruofu, Jiarong had long known that this kid would definitely ask questions when he came, but he didn't expect to be so bold. He spoke first when others were talking about business. Jia 11 was slapped on the head, but she still stayed at Yan's desk begging for nothing, refusing to give up until she heard the result. This chapter is not finished, please click on the next page to continue. That's so angry. This son was born in vain. He saw a beautiful girl and couldn't walk. Jia Yan was at a loss and nodded, it's not impossible, it depends on your attitude. They will definitely get along with us. Jia 11 shouted like this without thinking, and then left happily. After all, Xiando is a top-notch talented woman from the central star field of the Milky Way. She is 3 years old. With the biological genes that have been reproduced there for countless years, she is still from a top family. She is already so beautiful that she can compete with the Grandma Satsuma and the ant created by technology. Jiao Makiao made the same comparison, and the most important point is that Fang has normal genes. To put it bluntly, the race that his grandma created for the genes is not perfect, because there are too many genetic defects. Sorry, I will work with his mother to educate this child later. Jia Rong apologized to Jia Yan badly. It's okay. He is already so old. He has indeed reached the age to talk about marriage. It's just that we don't care about him too much. If he were on Earth, he might have grandchildren. No. People on Earth are 60 years old, and some families who get married early have grandchildren, but Jia is not even a child today. This kid is so depressed. Jia Yan talked with other leaders who were eating melon for a while about the envoys of the 5 major forces. But the conclusion reached in the end is nothing more than a drag-out decision. There is no way to adapt to changes. The only thing that can be done is to strengthen defensive measures and control the discussion. Otherwise, rumors such as the powerful forces in the galactic Central Star region coming to seize trade will spread and the entire trade will be affected. People in the district are definitely in panic, which seriously affects the operation here. In fact, the marriage that was originally mentioned casually by a strong man actually progressed rapidly when both sides were at war with each other. On the third day, through some unknown means, the senior leaders of the Grand Alliance who had communicated with the Galaxy Central Star sent people to hand over the marriage alliance. The proposal was clearly written, and the other party was willing to give a lot of money to marry Jia. The Jia family needs to give up a certain trade area. This chapter is not finished yet. Chapter 8 Marriage Come At. Warm reminder, to prevent incomplete content acquisition and text disorder, please do not use the browser, app, reading mode. Don't let their big shots have the opportunity to enter and exit the trade zone in person, otherwise the treaty between the two parties will be torn up. This is really fast. Black God Jia Yan sat at his desk, read the marriage document up and down several times, and then threw the documents on the table. Jia 11, who was already sitting opposite and anxious, quickly picked up the documents and started flipping through them. Every time he looked at a face, he smiled more and more, and finally couldn't hold it back and laughed softly. You are young, can you have some backbone? Rong patted the kid on the back of the head again. Jia Yan also smiled silently. Jia 11 is a kid who has been known to be honest since he was a child. He is often known for traveling to increase his reputation and sneaking into the balls of all major civilized races within Orion's arms to pick up girls. Now he has been dragged into the trading area by his father for decades. It means that there is almost no chance of receiving the bishop normally. It is not easy to find a suitable match, and he is going crazy. At Essence // bookstore * first update. Well, since Xin Do was born in a secular world, marrying my family is not an insult to her. She is a good match for Xiao 11. Since they are so sincere, Rong, you can take charge of this. Choose a good opportunity to marry her back. Xiao 11, can you treat people well? Okay. I will treat her well. Jia 11 Meng's expression perked up, and the corners of his mouth grinned to the horizon. Jia Yanyu still couldn't hold it back and said, also, don't sell our Jia family members to the wind. Sure. Believe it or not. Jia Yantu thought. Bai Yu reminds you, remember to collect Essence book after reading it. I will update it next time so that you can continue reading. I look forward to continuing to read. Chapter 8 Marriage Come At. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3227. Come out and see the world. Who knows if I can go back? In the past few days, Xin Do was in an extremely bad mood. She had a bad face all day long, and her fellow travelers all walked around her when they saw her. I thought that this area was just a backward aboriginal barbaric people. But he never imagined that his elders would really like to keep her as a marriage partner for others. Isn't it just a so-called channel controller? Is it necessary? It's not good to open that passage directly, but you actually let me stay and ruin my life here. Xiando felt like he had eaten a powder keg. He was dizzy for several days and would fight anyone he caught. However, her good family background prevented her from scolding him in any way. In short, it was just the mischievous fighting spirit of a little girl in the eyes of others. It's more cute and makes people pay less attention to her psychological needs. On this day, she wandered into the newly established entertainment area in the trade area and spent a lot of money to vent her dissatisfaction and unhappiness. I saw a familiar figure standing in the distance, and I noticed myself with great keenness. Gia 11. When Gia 11 glanced at the various humanoid beauties and cast her eyes towards Xiando, she was startled and rushed over as if she had discovered some unique treasure. Miss Xiando, we meet you everywhere in life. Mr. Gia 11, I never thought about meeting you. Haha, Miss Xiando really loves to joke. Are you here to visit the entertainment area? There are many good things here that non-locals can't find. Come with me and let me take you around today. Xiando wanted to curse, but the person she least wanted to see now was Gia 11. She felt sick when she saw this handsome face. But her good upbringing makes it difficult for her to say such things in front of others. Besides, just like what the adults told her, she also understood. This marriage has extraordinary significance, and she can still grasp this priority. Having no choice but to follow Gia 11 into the hinterland of the entertainment district. This entertainment area is also divided into human tribes, beast tribes, etc. It is easy for ordinary people to be dazzled when they come here to play. Once you find the wrong entertainment area that suits you, it will really be a bit boring, because some facilities and funny jokes are only this type of creature can understand. Gia 11 was like a familiar veteran, taking Xiando to various play areas. Look, that's our humanoid amusement park over there. There are roller coasters, game consoles, and all kinds of interesting facilities, especially the holographic induction game, which allows people to fight in a gladiatorial game. It's very exciting and exciting. Real game. A realistic fight? Okay, just let me play that. I like this kind of game. Xiando rolled his eyes and thought of a wonderful way to reject Gia 11. Beat him to pieces and make him realize the gap between the two sides, so that Gia 11 won't be obsessed with him. It would be best if the other party denies the marriage herself. Although she will be embarrassed, she will not have to bear any responsibility when she returns to the family. You like this kind of game, then fine, just let me go. Gia 11 was very grand. In order to avoid being disturbed, he rented a machine. Both parties put on holograms to influence their brains and started fighting directly. This machine is so primitive. After Xiando put on the smart head, she felt a little suffocated, but fortunately, the operation and optimization of the machine were pretty good. She controlled her brain waves to control her character to make several actions in the game, which were somewhat unexpected. Smooth. It seems that the program optimization workers of this game are quite outstanding. She didn't know that it was because Gia 11 liked this type of game that the optimizer of this game was Edisha herself. Although the hardware is not good, in terms of software, Edisha has done its best. Kill. The game characters controlled by two young people quickly fought together. In this game, the strengths of both sides are equal. Only in this way can the real actual combat ability be seen. In the dusty sky, Xiando and his opponent were tied, each taking a few steps back with a somewhat surprised expression on their faces. Haha, you underestimate me, don't you, Miss Xiando? You don't know how I have spent these years. Jia-11 was very satisfied with the other party's expression when he saw her now. Humph, you are only at the venerable level. Let me let you know the combat power of a star-level genius in the central star field of our galaxy. It was absolutely impossible for Xiando to believe that a talented young man in this mere wilderness could have a fighting ability comparable to his own. Moreover, Jia-11 still lacks a lot of her own strength. She has already reached the star level. In terms of experience and hard conditions, she is naturally much better than Jia-11. The two of them were fighting like this in the virtual world. Snapped. A document was thrown to the table again. It's settled, son. Let's see if there's anything else you want me to deal with. No, Dad, you can get off work early and rest today. Haha, I didn't expect that coming here to take charge would be more tiring than over there. If I had known better, I wouldn't have taken on this job. Black God Jia Yan shook his head helplessly, patted his waist and stood up. By the way, how is Xiao 11's actual combat ability? Speaking of this, Dad, don't worry. This child is the only talent I have ever seen. Although his cultivation talent is inferior to these interstellar geniuses, in terms of actual combat ability, he really lives up to Dad, who was so optimistic about him. His actual combat skills are much better than mine. Well, it's a pity that after all these years, there is no chance for him to really see blood. Jia Yan nodded and smiled. Yes, Jia 11's actual combat ability was personally approved by Jia Yan. Among the Jia family, he is the only genius who can take action. Moreover, Jia 11 extremely cleverly avoided the genetic disadvantage of the Jia family compared to other geniuses, too little precipitation. His talent discovered by Jia Yan lies in his actual combat ability. As a result, Jia Yan not only gave him the talent for formations and a growth rate similar to that of ordinary geniuses, but also developed combat abilities in a targeted manner. Coupled with the ability of the battle path, let's put it this way, now, on his own, he is probably enough to surpass ordinary geniuses who are better than him. Although Jia Yan had similar abilities at the beginning, people cannot compare like this. Jia 11 was able to obtain this ability because Jia Yan and his father Jia Rong spent countless efforts to cultivate it. Haha, I just got information here. That boy Jia 11 went to the entertainment area with Miss Xiando. Jia Rong opened his personal brain, and after seeing some interesting information, he reported it to Jia Yan with a smile. This is interesting. I think Xiao 11's game fighting ability will make that arrogant little girl see a different Xiao 11. Jia Yan couldn't help but laugh. The moonlight is beautiful. No. The entertainment area, which simulates a real nighttime environment, is even more colorful. Amidst the bursts of lights, two young men and women are walking harmoniously on the street. Have you been practicing that game for a long time? Xiando couldn't suppress his surprise, and finally couldn't help but ask Jia 11. It's not okay not to ask. She was so shocked. As a star-level person, he actually lost to Jia 11 in more than 30 games in that realistic battle game. She only won 5 games, and even she was not sure whether Jia 11 was suspected of letting go. In short, this indigenous young man from a small and cheap area really scared her at this point. Yes, I play often. Jia Zizi nodded proudly. He was not a fool. This beautiful young lady looked down on him, and it was written all over her face. Now that he can use his own talents to attack the opponent, it makes Jia 11 feel happy. The intriguing reply made Xiando unable to help but think wildly. In fact, she had another question she wanted to ask. Finally, the two of them walked side by side for a long distance, and when they reached the gate of the entertainment area, Xiando let out a long sigh of relief. If the family is unwilling to let go, the man next to him will really become his husband. Although it is quite common for the strong men in the universe to have enough husband and wife relationships in a long life, it can be used as a basis for life. The first husband has an absolutely extraordinary status. At her age, she had even fantasized more than once that she would have the kind of marriage in love novels where stay together forever and grow old together. So if she really gets married, she will take good care of it unless she really can't run it anymore. Now, the most important thing is that she wants to know whether Gia 11, who may become her first husband, or even her first love interest, is an indigenous waste. So she hesitated before asking. Then, Gia 11, are your actual combat abilities and talents the same as those in the game? Gia 11 finally smiled and clenched her hands into fists in her trouser pockets. Done. That's right. Although I can't guarantee my cultivation talent, in terms of actual combat talent, it should be pretty good. My grandfather personally praised it. A practical talent that was personally praised by a powerful person from the lower level of the territory lord. Xiando's heart skipped a beat. In her family, she had also been exaggerated by the ancestors of the lower level domain lords, but that was just verbal praise. In reality, it was difficult to truly praise a young man's talent in certain aspects. Because masters who can reach the lower level of territory lord, their own talents are too high. It is almost impossible for the younger generation to have similar talents. They have seen too many geniuses in their lives, and there are no true geniuses among the younger generations. People like you, don't even think about getting praise from these top masters. Even if Jia Yan is more relaxed about his disciples with weak blood, he cannot let them go without mercy. Besides, in previous games, you couldn't do anything fake. In other words, Jia 11 really has practical talent and is extremely strong. In other words, if she really had to marry, at least when she returned to her parents' home, she wouldn't be laughed at for marrying a useless aborigine. Taking another deep breath, she hesitated and said with a blush, I don't like this trading area very much, or in other words, I don't like leaving the central star field of the Milky Way. It's too far away from home. If anyone comes with I'm getting married, and I want to live closer to my parents, at least within the central star field of the Milky Way. As she spoke, the entire gooseneck became red with blood. This is the charm of a little girl, she is really young. Jia 11 was stunned. After a moment, she realized what she was doing and said loudly, okay, my family is in the central star field of the Milky Way. In fact, it also controls a power, and that power is the sect founded by my grandfather, named the Yin-Yang sect. May not have a large territory, but it is also a force within the central star field of the Milky Way. It will be closer to your home. Do you like it? Xiando was speechless now. He raised his eyes with flushed cheeks and saw Jia 11's face that was disgusting before. Under the light, this kid was really handsome because he inherited the Satsumagori gene. As long as a girl in love feels that the other person is good, even the things she didn't like at first will start to like her. Now she has this illusion. She was a little too stubborn before, but Jia 11 seems to be pretty good. She nodded as low as a mosquito. Jia 11 felt like her whole body was about to float. Xianfu came so suddenly. What kind of princess from the elves, what kind of beautiful humanoid girl from the sea tribe, what kind of granddaughter of the eldest daughter of the trading area, how can they be compared with the direct line girl from the most powerful force in the central star region of the Milky Way? Moreover, even compared to her appearance, she who came from the central star territory and inherited tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years of excellent genes from the powerful clan there is much stronger, and her temperament is much higher than that of other beauties who are like bumpkins. 10 times. He was going crazy with joy. Okay. Thank you Xian, Miss Xiando, haha, I'm so happy. Xiando was angry and funny. He glared at him and said, this is the street. Can you have the magnanimity of the grandson of a domain master who is a late-level master? You don't need this kind of magnanimity, as long as I'm happy. Oh, it seems I have to think about it carefully. You are too barbaric. No, it's okay if I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy anymore. Jia 11's marriage to Xi and Do progressed extremely quickly. Under the premise that neither party involved was too resistant, it didn't take long for the other party to send a large fleet that was already advancing. The fleet brought a large amount of supplies, which were originally intended to provide trade along the way and to trade in the trading area to make up for the losses of the voyage, but now they have become a dowry. And it's not just this dowry. It is said that during the negotiations between the two parties, the other party also provided a dowry of no less than dozens of small senior stars. As for the trade area, the main marriage parties headed by the Geo family directly offered dozens of equity points. The Geo family was hemorrhaging the most. Originally, Jia Yan took over more than half of the shares in one go, but after careful consideration by the black god Jia Yan, he threw away 20 points of the shares in one go. This is a last resort. In these situations, the Geo family's biggest disadvantage was exposed, that is, there were not many available people, and Jia Yan's single strength was gradually beginning to be insufficient to withstand pressure from all aspects. If the five major forces come together this time, not to mention that only the clones are present, even if the real body comes, the result may not be any different. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3228. It's a pity that I haven't had the chance to take action yet. In the office, Black God Jia Yan, who was about to bring a new round of cargo trains to carry people and goods into the other world, felt a sense of regret. When the five major forces came to visit, he thought he might have a chance to show off his avatar's combat power. Unexpectedly, the incident was resolved peacefully. He just felt that the hero was somewhat useless. There can't be a big enemy that can be solved peacefully, and you can't go to war with others. Those forces that still control shit should go home and plant sweet potatoes, otherwise all forces will be wiped out. However, this peace is only temporary. If the marriage is successful, at most it will have a very deep relationship with the forces dominated by humanoid life forms, and this relationship cannot be said to be strong. As for the two quasi-newcomers, their private discussion of migrating to the central star region of the galaxy was also nonsense. It doesn't matter whether Jia Yantung agrees or not. It's just that the five forces alliance will never agree. The theory of marriage is not so much peace as it is a short-term peace. The purpose is to see clearly the reality of the trade area, including Jia Yan's reality. If given the chance, they would definitely make a comeback, truly cause a bloody storm, and take the entire trade area under their own control. Father, this is the farewell. Well, you take good care of the family members here. No matter how much trouble there is, it doesn't have much to do with the clone. He still has to return to the other world according to the original plan. On the second day, Black God Jia Yan said goodbye to the senior officials and the children of the Geo family on time. But just as he jumped into the subspace and was about to pull up a string of thousands of kilometers of trains behind him, his eyes suddenly froze. I saw in the area around the fifth floor of the subspace, a strange visitor wandering inside the subspace, watching with lightning eyes. His eyes suddenly collided with Jia Yan's. Nothing fancy. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he no longer walked towards the secret room to pull the train. Instead, he abandoned the large number of passengers and cargo behind him and flew straight towards the creatures in the fifth level space. He locked onto the master hovering in subspace and asked, "Who are you?" The other party was obviously not afraid, but an intriguing smile appeared on the monster's lips. He smiled meaningfully and said, "Why, near your trade area, even the subspace is not allowed to be entered. No, if you have the ability, even if there is a world out there, you can go in and try it yourself, but don't take the path I took, thank you." Jia Yan's strange behavior made the people behind him notice that someone released the power of brain waves to observe, and when they saw the life in the fifth level space, They suddenly became silent. Is this a strong man with subspace talent? Shouldn't there be a warning system for the outside world? Why didn't you call the police when someone broke in here? Dad. This is. Jia 11 followed Jia Rong and became nervous. Don't worry, your grandpa has his own sense of proportion. Jia Rong was the old god. Even if the person in the past was a clone, he was also a clone of Jia Yan. And Jia Yan is a legend poured out with countless battles and endless blood. He certainly wouldn't have the slightest worry. As the two sides approached to talk, many trade zone experts also learned the information and flew into the subspace entrance to take a look at the situation. Some people were surprised. Isn't that the subspace master rumored by the 5 major alliance forces? Someone looked slightly solemn and asked quickly. The domain lord level powerhouse became more serious and said, since the arrival of the 5 major forces, I have been determined to collect information about the other party, and even found out that the reason why the other party wants to go to war with my trade zone is because they are confident that they have a subspace talent master of the same level as the domain lord, and there is no need for Lord Jia Yan to be the only carrying force. This person's appearance is very similar to the image of the late domain master that I found through channels. For a moment, everyone was silent. A master at the lower level of domain lord. And he is also a person with subdimensional talent. If Jia Yan's real body was here, they would be able to calm down a little, but now they are just avatars. If your clone fights against a real person of the same level, you will definitely suffer a loss. Don't be nervous. The 5 major power alliances have reached a marriage agreement with our trade zone. It is probably impossible for them to fall out directly. It depends on how Master Jia Yan responds. Everyone was nervous, but the 2 contacts were Fujing Buobo. You must be Jia Yan's clone. You are indeed, as your name suggests, with good courage, wisdom, and bearing. After Jia Yan approached the master, he took the initiative to speak kindly. But Jia Yan didn't appreciate it, and asked a little unfriendly verbally, exactly, I would like to ask my friend to reply to my question, why did you ignore the laws of this trade zone and break into our alarm area? The other party suddenly smiled, I have been walking in the subspace for thousands of years, and I have never heard of an alarm zone in the subspace. Now we have it. At least in our trade area, there is a warning area here. Please withdraw from 1 kilometers. That time, the space expert's face slowly darkened, he shook his head slightly and said, Your Excellency Jia Yan, are you so arrogant in your true body, or is this your clone the only one like this? What if it's just a clone, but what about the real body? If only the clone is like this, I will punish you on behalf of your real body to make you understand that you cannot cause trouble for the real body. If the real body is also so arrogant, it is necessary for us to redraw the friendly agreement. It's a new copy. Jia Yan thought that was indeed the case. The other party has no good intentions. When the envoys came before, there was no peerless master who could control the situation, so they did not make any public announcement. Now this subspace powerhouse should have arrived in the latter step. And after knowing that there was probably no lower level territory lord sitting in the trade zone, he went straight to test it. Of course, if the trade zone backed down, he would really take away the information. What is the most important information about the entire trade area? Naturally, it is the various data that Jia Yan entered into the other world. The other party is a subspace master, suspected to be a lower-level domain lord. If he takes away all the detailed information about Jia Yan's entry into the other world, Jia Yan really doubts that he can also follow the gourd and break into the other world alone. After all, as this space turmoil unfolds day and night, other subspace masters dare not say that the lower-level domain lords of the same level as Jia Yan may really have that kind of ability. Jia Yan does not underestimate himself, let alone underestimate the world's heroes. Black God Jia Yan breathed a sigh of relief, pressed the switch of the unique subspace communicator, and said calmly, Today's itinerary is cancelled. Passengers and goods will be placed in the warehouse to wait for one night, and the trade area will be opened. All defenses against subspace impacts. Your order. Hearing this, the entire trade area behind him began to move a lot. The trains that were ready to go were rushed back to the garage, a large number of fortifications were opened, and countless staff working near the subspace port quickly evacuated under the alarm. Everything unfolded in an orderly manner. The other party watched the scene leisurely. When it was almost finished, 20 minutes later, he looked playfully at the tiny black god Jia Yan in front of him as if he was watching a big show. The response speed is very fast. Judging from your so-called trade area, it's not exactly children's playhouse. Of course we are not playing house. From time to time, troublemakers like you come to cause trouble. Even though we are a group of fools, we have adjusted a reasonable way of dealing with it. Jia Yan's words immediately made the other party's nose twist with anger. You know, he is the lower level of the territory lord. This distinction actually confused him with other ordinary strongmen who came to cause trouble. Your Excellency Jia Yan, although you are only a clone, your words also represent your true body. I hope you will behave yourself and not miss your true body. The other party finally became a little angry, and Jia Yan chuckled. A black mustard seed-like dust appeared behind him. This mustard seed-like thing, the whole thing was spinning, and inside it was actually an all-encompassing, tiny world. Today, the man-made space has gradually been perfected and has become a real world controlled by the clone. It complements him perfectly and is a killer artifact that only suits him. 3 sentences without speculation. Since your Excellency wants to be an enemy of the trade zone, then let your subordinates see the truth. Bear. After saying this, a vast amount of azure blue burst out from the surface of Black God Jia Yan's body. This is a large amount of defensive energy transformed by the power of the formation, and there are extremely subtle changes in it. The left formation code is 003-235-8613, the right formation is 221554623003, get off the front formation. In an ultra-small world like a mustard seed, there are countless soldiers who are ready for action. They have been replaced by a new type of communication arms. Each person corresponds to dozens or hundreds of formation numbers, and one person controls one of them. And these people, there is also a superior who coordinates the plan, and ultimately the command of all of them lies with the black god Jia Yan. This is the only way of fighting that is only suitable for clones. He is different from Edissa in that he does not have the computing power of more than 10,000 times per second. But he can do similar subtle operations. Of course, if it is too complicated and adaptable, the most we can do is let this group of soldiers assist in the few changes that have been practiced for many years, and there are so many ways to fight over and over again. But in Jia Yan's hands, with good command, these changes can make 2 things from 1 life, 3 things from 2 things, and all things from 3 things. And he can control the unused energy and mind, which is even more advantageous than Edisha. The bigger advantage is the power belongs to Jia Yan's real body, and his clone can be regarded as Jia Yan's depository body. When controlled, there is no hindrance at all. Very good, very good. It turns out that Your Excellency the clone has already prepared for a fight with me, so, it's as you wish. The face of the subspace master, who was a lower-level domain lord, changed for a while, and he felt that his face was burning. He felt slighted. How dare you attack him despite being separated? As for the master himself, he originally wanted to have a friendly discussion with Jia Yan's real body, and then wear down the opponent's energy before discussing cooperation. Unexpectedly, the real owner didn't see it, but the other party's clone dared to attack him. Some couldn't laugh or cry, and some felt offended. At this time, a group of messengers from the 5 major alliances who were secretly in the distant starry sky and projected the battle scenes onto the equipment, were watching the scene through the machine. They were also a little burnt on the outside and tender on the inside. Are these masters from outside forces really weird? Distinction between avatars and challenging masters of the same level as my real body. This is the first time I have seen such a guy in my more than 1,000 years of life. Should I say he is brainless, or should he say that the ignorant are not guilty? I am afraid that Jia Yan himself is definitely not much smarter than this clone. It's best for us to occupy the passage controlled by such a brainless person. Let's not mention the previous marriage. We can't treat Xioxin Do badly. Xian Do was also in the crowd, and his pretty face turned red. She was notified yesterday that things had taken a turn for the better and that a senior master came to the trade area in person. She doesn't need to marry Jia 11. At this time, she saw that the situation was exactly as the elders said yesterday, and the two sides began to fall out. She didn't know whether she was happy or sad. She was a little happy at the thought of not having to marry Jia 11, but remembering her previous outing with Jia 11 and the determination she had made in the past few days, she felt empty in her heart. It's complicated anyway. No matter what others think or think. That time, the two masters in the depths of space still had a head-on confrontation. Just let me destroy your honeyed self-confidence, crush it to me. The master of space after the domain lord shook his head calmly, raised 1 foot high and knocked it down in the air. Following his actions, the subspace became turbulent, and a control that was no less than that of Jia Yan's real body spread through the subspace. The entire 5th level space seemed to be controlled by him. Together with the crack of the foot, it surged towards the Black God clone, as if it would not stop until it crushed his whole body into pieces. The Black God Jia Yan's heart is like still water. His eyes were cast on this overwhelming subspace. The subspace that he could usually control was completely disconnected from him under the control of Fang Zheng'er, the supermaster of the 8 subspaces. At this moment, he really seemed to be fighting against the entire world. The rumbling sound is endless. The Black God Jia Yan waved his arm, and the power of the formation hovering around him turned into a coiled blue dragon. He traveled across more than 1,000 kilometers, looking for the book garden to cover his entire body. Wrapped in it, there is no flaw in it. Boom. The subspace overturned and hit the defense layer of the clone brewing, causing the formation to shatter and shaking the earth. Oh! The first piece of subspace that collided did not cause much reaction to the array defense, and the opponent's expression was stagnant. Sure enough, even an arrogant person must have a trump card, otherwise he would not be able to make such an arrogant move. After being surprised, he didn't feel any shock. He just nodded at them without changing his expression and waved his feet again. Ouch! As he waved, the subspace really came alive, showing the ability to be accurately manipulated by the opponent. The entire subspace was actually compressed and transformed into a giant black dragon, which was much slender and more powerful than the azure dragon guarded by the Black God Jia Yan on the surface of his body. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3229. Chapter 11 Deo Heart Explodes. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe. This is the power of the Domain Lord's later level. Outside the subspace, everyone watching the scene was extremely shocked. The trade area was dumbfounded. Jia Yan has demonstrated his subdimensional abilities countless times, but no one thinks that Jia Yan can overturn the 5th level space. It can be seen from this that the powerful person in the subspace is probably a level above Jia Yan's true body in this regard. Don't worry, Lord Black God must have a reason if he dares to take action. A senior domain master's face darkened, but he spoke to comfort others. In any case, they have been deeply tied to Jia Yan, and it is absolutely impossible to break up the relationship with each other at this time. But whether each of them really has confidence in this battle is a matter of opinion. Ouch! Soon enough, I saw the giant dragon twisting and circling in the 5th level space, and it had swallowed the seemingly extremely small blue dragon-shaped circle into its mouth. The dragon-shaped defense formed by the formation, which was also 1,000 kilometers in size, was swallowed up by the endless twisted dragon in the 5th level space, without any chance of resistance. Give up. You are just differentiating yourself. If your real body comes, there is still a slight chance of confronting me. That space-talented late-level domain master had a very cold expression on his face. But at the same time, he was also slightly surprised in his heart. Even if it is a clone carefully crafted by a late-level domain lord, it should not be this strong. He carefully observed the formation defense that was swallowed by the giant dragon that he created, and soon felt relieved. I don't know why the defense is so amazing. It's not my own strength, this should be the backhand left by his real body, but what kind of backhand can leave so much for the clone to use? Doesn't this give me a senior domain lord level clone for no reason? He felt that Jia Yan's clone was a bit unreasonable. If Jia Yan could make more than 5 such clones in batches, and each one could store Jia Yan's usual excess energy, wouldn't it be equivalent to the weakest late-level domain master? But he didn't know that this kind of thing was against the harmony of nature, and even Jia Yan couldn't do it easily. Not to mention anything else, the only treasure that can be stored by the Black God's clone now, the creation of the world, is almost impossible to copy. After all, in addition to the creation of the world has swallowed a lot of treasures due to the various adventures of the real body over the years, and it has evolved into what it is now, and there are many uncertain factors in it, such as the Black God Jia Yan's the power of space is washing, refining and creating the world all the time. It would be very difficult for him to do it all over again. In other words, Jia Yan could only have such a powerful clone in the end. But enough. Kakaka. Squad 3 of the 98th Platoon of the 5th Brigade of the 100th Legion, hurry up and supply me with the 01882 note of the 004-352-5678 formation. In the creation world, countless running soldiers roared crazily. They have not fought a war for many years, and the entire army has been transformed into civilian soldiers, fully supported to deal with the current situation. That is to say, the entire army is responsible for making detailed adjustments to the formation. After decades of development and growth, the army at this time already has strict leaders in charge of each joint of the formation. Under the flexible and changeable tactics, even it can correspond to the changes in battles between the strong men in the lower ranks of domain lords. In fact, the reason is very simple, that is, there are more than 3 sets of response strategies at all times, and they are foolproof long before the battle moves begin. If you cannot react, you can always react before the battle. With the assistance of technological computers, it's not too late to react after 1 or 2 moves. The blue formation defense dragon has been resisting stubbornly. Humph, you actually used such a move. The domain master's lower level master was a little embarrassed. He knew that this was Jia Yan's backhand, but others didn't know. Besides, even if it was Jia Yan's backhand, as a master of the same level as Jia Yan and with similar talents, he couldn't even deal with the opponent's backhand. It would be ridiculous to say so. Then, he became angry and waved his feet away again. The roaring dragon spit out a tiny blue defensive formation dragon. A large number of formation circles were broken by the blue dragon, but soon an endless stream of formations came out, beating them to shame without causing any damage. The black subspace twisted dragon waved its claws, and one claw fell, covering the sky and the sun. This is a pure attack tactic, enough to cause a senior domain lord to die on the spot. The black god Jia Yan let out a long breath and his eyes suddenly became sharp. He is the most basic master controller of the entire formation. After years of cooperation, he has even forgotten that most of the fine operations are mastered by the soldiers who created the world, and he is as easy to control as his arm. At this point he found his opportunity. I'm not always defensive. Black God Jia Yan sneered. He is also Jia Yan. And what is the most important combat characteristic of being Jia Yan? That's attack. Defense is not Jia Yan's style of play. If he persists in defending, even if he finally manages to defend himself, he will be scolded by his real body. The two formation defenses cracked into fragments, but after leaving the blue dragon's body, the fragments immediately evolved into two slender blue blades. The circle-like formations were connected to each other, forming an extremely thin, the illusory longsword is not small in length and width. Cut. Go to hell. On one side are two long blue knives, and on the other side are the claws of the black god dragon. Both sides did not choose to defend, but attacked each other. After all, the black god dragon is an attack method brewed by stronger people. Its claws first fell on Jia Yan's defensive formation. Even with the help of countless soldiers of Jia Yan, he was also hit by the claws and rolled over. Flying upside down, a large number of formation defenses were shattered into pieces, and even the defense layer that withstood the attack was broken into pieces by more than half. Fortunately, formations from other aspects quickly wormed their way into this defensive area, protecting the Jia Yan Black God clone inside tightly again. The giant black dragon was about to swoop in to pursue it, but a blue sword light had already arrived in front of its face and slashed down directly. Two pieces of sword light, one is cutting the giant dragon, and the other is coming to the real body of the powerful master, intending to launch an offensive against his real body. Little tricks. Seeing that the black dragon's claw failed to accomplish anything, the other party became more and more angry. It's just a different incarnation. He claims to be at least on par with Jia Yan's real body, or even stronger than Jia Yan's real body. But now he is so embarrassed, and he can't suppress his murderous aura. As for the two attacks that were coming, he didn't take it to heart at all. Call out. A ray of sword light cut open the black dragon's head, cutting off more than half of the dragon's head, but in the end it disappeared into the distortion of the subspace due to exhaustion of the formation. Another sword light brought a piece of blue fragments to Daneng himself, which collided with the surface of his body, sputtering out endless blue brilliance and not even a trace of damage to the opponent. The subspace power, who was about to launch another attack, felt some pain in the area where he had just been attacked. He quickly looked around and saw that there was actually a trace of blood flowing out of his shoulder, and the blood was quickly visible to the naked eye. Powerful body repair. But he still suddenly realized that he was really hurt. Even if this is just a skin injury, it is an undeniable fact that the hand of Jia Yan's clone was injured. Sulfuric acid. Daneng stretched out his 2 feet, and there were actually 2 extremely twisted subspace blades on the feet. Jia Yan, although you are just a clone, you have made me realize how powerful you are. I apologize for my previous contempt for you. Now I am using a real attack. If you can resist it, I will withdraw immediately. The 5 major forces previously the agreement between the alliance and your force is still valid, and I will give you some compensation privately. Black God Jia Yan asked the creation world to go all out to repair the formation defense damage caused by the previous blow. Hearing this, he looked at the distortion on the opponent's feet, and his heart became more solemn than ever before and said, "Okay, please enlighten me. Between strong men, there is no need to say anything. If he says he wants to fight, then he will fight. If he is hurt and says he wants to end the fight with one blow, then it will be over." Because even the Black God clone knew that the other side still had the initiative on the entire battlefield. This person is a powerful person with subspace talent. His strength is much stronger than ordinary people of the same level. And he is still fighting on the opponent's home court at this time. Not to mention Jia Yan's clone who does not have subspace talent. Even Jia Yan's real body, come on, whether you are better than the other party in using subspace skills is a matter of 2 opinions. Therefore, Black God Jia Yan could only follow what the other party said. He didn't even have the slightest idea of taking risks and seriously injuring or even killing the powerful master in front of him. The gap is too big. Is it about the level of 12 or 13 steps Tianlu? They are stronger than Jiqiao and others. Of course, it is impossible for me to defeat, I can only find a way to survive this blow. Black God Jia Yan sighed slightly in his eyes. However, just when he was about to lie down and thought that it would be enough to just defend once, his eyes became sharp again. Hey, that's a normal thought. I'm Jia Yan. As a person who has grown up in combat, will I be like this? He silently issued an order in his mind to the army in the created world, notify the entire army to transport that big killer weapon out for me. Inside the creation world, the current president of the Black God Army, who was also the old swordsman who had been following Jia Yan in the creation world, was just about to spit out his blood. He picked up the communicator and shouted, "Lord Black God, we haven't finished that thing yet. Even if you can grasp it clearly, it is difficult for you to control it. If you use it, you may suffer 800 losses to yourself, so you should think twice." The old swordsman has gone crazy. He had traveled out of the Milky Way a few years ago, and realized his weakness in the Milky Way. Although he also had the idea of continuing to become stronger, he finally chose to return to the creation world first and assume the responsibility of the commander of the Black God Army. Because he is a staunch supporter of the Black God Jia Yan. Even more so when the outside world knew that Lord Jia Yan, the Black God, was not actually his true form, but a chess piece whose status was somewhat embarrassing and might even be abandoned by his true form at any time, he chose to help this lord gain a higher status. Today's Black God Army is able to have such a high degree of coordination with the Black God Jia Yan, and his contribution is indispensable. Don't think twice, just do as I say. The life and death of this god is in your hands. I believe in you. Black God Jia Yan's words were heard by the whole army. In an instant, not only the old man's sword immortal, but also the other masters of the three armies felt their blood surge and they suddenly threw themselves into their work like crazy. The flow of time in creating the world is much slower than outside, so they have time to make slow adjustments, but I can't. Black God Jia Yan didn't think he said anything that would make the soldiers cry. Those are all true expressions. The starting point is not how much he trusts the subordinates who created the world, but that he has inherited Jia Yan's character traits, dare to fight hard. Have a taste of my heaven-picking feat. The opponent no longer cared whether the Black God Jia Yan was his true form, and now used a more powerful move. Generally, he would use such moves to deal with masters of the same level. Now, for the first time, he used it to deal with a clone of the same level. He did not say whether he killed the clone after the fight. He only said that he used this move and was sent back to the central star field by the juniors outside. His face must be shameless. Saved. Vapor. The two toes were like the spearheads that cut through the sky, stabbing straight into the subspace area where the Black God Jia Yan was located. This offensive did not have any overwhelming momentum, but was silent because it was so fast, breaking through subspace as fast as lightning. Facing this menacing blow, Jia Yan, the clone of the Black God, had no time to react at the very first moment. His actual combat power is only around a galaxy level, and coupled with the fighting instinct derived from his true body, it is only at the level of an ordinary domain lord. Now faced with the full strength of a powerful person in the late domain lord level, he can react as soon as possible. There's a ghost. It wasn't until the two toes pierced the defensive layer and the large defensive formation in front of the clone broke apart that he finally reacted belatedly. So fast. His heart tightened. Yet panic but not chaos. With his combat experience synchronized with his real body, it is impossible for him to have any thoughts of giving up resistance. Come out. A specialty from the other world, Tau Heart Blast. Good. The Black God clone is using Jia Yan's latest powerful move. A specialty of the other world, Tau Heart Explosion. There are many specialties in the other world, but for Jia Yan, the thing he likes to use most in battle is the Tau Heart. The Dao Heart itself is what is left after the death of ancient creatures that are like oil in the world, and they are all extremely powerful creatures. Even if they are absorbed by Jia Yan, the Dao power inside the Dao Heart will still have good effects. In general, residents of the world sell these things to professional dealers and use them to make medicine or collect them as handicrafts. /U003 Remember the website address, for easy reading next time, or enter in Baidu to enter the site. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3230. But Jia Yan himself developed something more useful, positive and negative explosives. In particular, the Dao Heart fruits he chooses to use usually have positive and negative attributes, such as those of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, plus false fruits and real fruits. The positive and negative explosives produced by fruits with mutually opposite properties formed the entire inner world, and were the most helpful thing to Jia Yan during the war, Tau Heart Explosion. Let's put it this way, if the power of Jia Yan's ordinary positive and negative explosives is 1, the strongest of this heart fruit can be 3. But their release has a single biggest flaw. Even if the power is too great, it is difficult for Jia Yan to control it. If it is replaced by a clone, it will be completely out of control. The entire force that created the world was useless in controlling it. If one of them is not good, the created world and the black god Jia Yan will be destroyed and shattered into pieces. But at this moment, there is no need. The arrow has to be released when it is on the string. This so-called formation power is quite durable. But, it still can't stop your death. That time, the Space Domain Master's junior master sneered with satisfaction, watching helplessly as his foot was about to pierce the body of the black god Jia Yan. In comparison, his feet, which are dozens of kilometers long, and the black god's body, which is more than 1.7 meters long, are like super cannons beating mosquitoes. There is no way to escape from heaven to earth. Under the pressure that blocked out the sky and the sun, He Shen felt that all the hairs on his body stood up. Having real combat experience does not mean that he truly has the ability to fight against masters of the same level. Come out. Deep in the creation world, a fruit explosive representing 2 colors of Tau Heart was slowly squeezed out. Still want to struggle? At that time, the Space Master's face darkened slightly. He also felt the astonishing power of this force. After a moment of solemn expression, the menacing power suppressed him even more thrillingly. Poof! The chest was cracked and the clone's eyes were bloodshot, showing how hard he was trying his best. Gurgling. A Tau Heart fruit hundreds of kilometers in size suddenly emerged from the created world behind him. Not to mention anything else, this size alone makes people in the galaxy world tremble. The other party was no exception. After noticing the strange and shocking aura of the Dao Heart fruit, he felt that the clone in front of him was a madman. And they also think that Jia Yan's real body is crazy and sick. Inexplicably, such a killer weapon is given to the district for separate use. If you are not sick, who is? But after all, if he really had the opportunity to use such a method for his clone, he would definitely not hesitate. Trading a clone for an enemy who is seriously injured and dying is a good deal no matter how you look at it. But you can't do it. In full view of everyone, this master of subspace talent pressed against the chest of Black God Jia Yan and mercilessly penetrated the vital part of Black God Jia Yan with his foot. But the endless array defenses hindered him, and he really couldn't penetrate it for a while. At most, it is flying forward against the chest of Black God Jia Yan, reaching a speed of tens of millions of kilometers per second, and cannot achieve an instant kill. the creative world behind the black god Jiayan, with the calculations of countless scientists and the efforts of soldiers, finally opened a gap, and a fruit with a diameter of more than 350 kilometers suddenly jumped out of the creative world. Ahem, Your Excellency failed to kill me, now, it's my turn. Black God Jiayan's eyes were about to burst, he coughed violently and said exhaustedly. The other party felt frightened and shouted, "It's a bit difficult to kill me with this kind of thing, but you will definitely die. Your Excellency, you are worried. Whether I die or not is none of your business. Think about how you can survive." Black God Jiayan felt that his consciousness fell into some kind of chaos, and the uncontrollable Dao heart explosion fruit bloomed in front of his eyes. At the last moment, he had no choice but to throw all his defensive formations into the world in front of him. Deep in the hinterland of the subspace, an earth-shaking brilliance flashed like a silent fireworks, followed by a violent shockwave, which blew away a large number of 5-level space distortions and annihilated large areas of the subspace into a state of chaos. The power of swallowing mountains and rivers caused many strong men below the star level who were paying attention to this battle to let out unbearable exclamations. Some people were blinded directly, and some people had problems with their ears. They were shocked to the point of bleeding and fainting. There are also many in the past. This is just a trace of power that leaked out after passing through many obstacles in the 5th level space. It can be seen how terrifying this earth-shattering power is at the center of the real explosion. Yin yin yin. After the tinnitus-like vibration passed, the entire starry sky was slightly deformed. The most terrifying thing is that the defense system of the trade zone was built with a lot of money. It was originally used to defend against the enemy. It is calculated that the shell of a lower-level domain lord can withstand ordinary attacks without any damage. However, it appeared under such damage. The cracks would probably cost a considerable amount of money to repair. "How's Grandpa doing?" Jia 11 was dizzy, struggled to get behind her father Jiarong, and asked deafly. "I don't know. Stand back, maybe this kind of destructive energy will radiate strongly and be harmful to your body." Jiarong is still very calm. It's not that he's not in a hurry, but he's experienced enough battles that he knows what's important. And to put it bluntly, the person fighting inside is just a clone of his father Jiayan. If he really dies, he was just sad for a while, far from the level of his father's real death. "How's it going inside?" On the other side, the earth shook violently, and the envoys from the 5 major forces who were traveling were also dumbfounded and asked each of them, but couldn't get an answer. Even several senior domain masters were observing the depths of the subspace with solemn expressions. They saw that there was a state of nothingness in the chaos, and they could not see the results of the battle inside. Appeared. Just when Xi and Do was also frightened, wondering how this matter would turn out and what would happen to her and Jia 11 in the end, her uncle, the humanoid senior domain master, spoke with a somewhat ups and downs tone. She quickly endured the discomfort in her ears and eyes, and focused her gaze deep into the subspace again. "I saw a somewhat staggering figure flying backwards in the chaotic zone of space. His body was obviously seriously injured, and blood spurted out of the corners of his mouth. One of his feet, which was supposed to be the most powerful weapon, was now broken, and it no longer had the same aggressive aura as before. In another chaotic place, there was also a small figure with a thin blue light, stumbling out and flying out, bleeding from its 7 orifices, and staggering from time to stop and rest. The two sides were retreating, locked on each other, and both were a little surprised. Is this really a distinction? The powerful late-level domain lord couldn't believe it. He had never thought that there was anyone in the world whose clone could use such attack power. The system of the strong man in the universe is a very rigorous system, or the entire universe is rigorous. A clone is the strength of the clone. Even if the real body has terrible attack moves, it will be greatly reduced if the clone uses it. This is an iron rule, and there are various reasons, such as the physical fitness of the clone is insufficient, or the intelligence cannot keep up, or the speed is not good enough. In short, for various reasons, it is nonsense for the clone to reach the level of strength of the real body. Otherwise, the entire strong system would have been in chaos long ago. But Jia Yan's clone broke the iron rule. A clone that can use the power of the lower level of the Domain Lord. Does this mean that Jia Yan's real strength far exceeds that of ordinary Domain Lords at the lower level? Or does it mean that Jia Yan has found the correct way to open the clone? Or maybe both? In short, this powerful man, who knew that Jia Yan's real body was not there, showed up at the trade channel openly, preparing to study the trade channel at close range, and maybe he could achieve results by himself without using the trade channel. At this time, his heart was filled with horror and disbelief. Your Excellency, do you still need to try? Black God Jia Yan asked with a sinister smile as he controlled his will not to fall into coma. Even though he was in a terrible state, he was far more seriously injured than the other party, but everyone knew that he was just a clone. Doppelgangers are consumables. Do you think I will believe that you can still produce an explosive like that? The other party's expression was extremely ugly, and he shouted fiercely. He was startled, and he was really a little scared after being hit hard. But he really didn't believe that he could still do it again if he was a different person. Whether you believe it or not, you will know if you try it again. I just don't know if you can withstand the next one. Black God Jia Yan said fearlessly. For a moment, the other party was silent. He was 90% sure that the Black God clone would not be able to use the next one, but was he willing to gamble? Bet with the doppelganger? He is sick. Humph, I remember you, Black God's clone, right? Your Excellency looks very different from the clones of ordinary strong men. I look forward to the next meeting with you. The other party gave in, turned around, and left. Your Excellency, it's easy to go, don't forget, the terms we made before must be implemented, and, secondly, you must be fully responsible for the compensation for this incident. Ken. When he looked again, the figure of that great power of space instantly wandered into the 10-dimensional space and disappeared like lightning. He has no trace of face left. Well. Black God Jia Yan could no longer hold on and closed his eyes precariously. Fortunately, at this moment, a figure glided into the subspace. He was Leda. He blocked the entire body of Black God Jia Yan within his own body, blocking all the gazes that came from all directions. The next moment, Leda escorted the Black God Jia Yan and disappeared quickly. Alas, Lord Black God, after this battle, you will also become famous. Leda looked at the Black God Jia Yan who was protected in his palm and had fallen into a semi-conscious state. He shook his head and laughed with some bitterness and admiration. He also witnessed the growth of Master Jia Yan's clone. In the past, he, like many people in the outside world, did not have the slightest respect for Master Jia Yan's clone. He just had to show respect to Jia Yan's clone because of his face. But after specifically feeling the difference of this clone, Leda almost respected the Black God clone as an independent personality. This time, the Black God clone is indeed famous all over the world. Although his own strength is not at the Domain Lord level, he was able to repel and injure a master of the lower Domain Lord level. It will not take long for such a big event to spread throughout the starry sky around the center of the trade area, and even to the central star field of the Milky Way. After all, the person he is fighting this time is probably not a small character. In this way, the status of the trade zone has been confirmed. After all, except for Lord Jia Yan, even the Lord's clones are so strong. The young men who are secretly eager to try will probably be more cautious. Leda quickly led the Black God clone into the giant palace controlled by Aditha. As this war came to an end, the trade area really stirred up waves with one stone, and countless related topics were circulated crazily. The person involved, the black god Jiayan, did not disappear for too long. He still has his own tasks to perform. Except for the black god Jiayan, no one can travel to the other world alone. If we delay for one more day, given the current size of the trade zone, a huge amount of funds and planning will be consumed, and all profits will be lost. So the next day, when the black god Jiayan, carrying another layer of blue illusory giant mosquito light hundreds of kilometers thick, reappeared in front of the world, people realized that the person who originally escorted the train was no longer Lord Jiayan himself, is the cloned black god who just yesterday had a big fight with a powerful person from the lower level of the territory lord, and his status has been crazily increased. Perhaps in the past, many tourists and senior officials would have expressed dissatisfaction with this matter. They are afraid of making mistakes. But the clones have managed to defeat a great master of the lower level of the territory lord with their clones. What else do they have to be dissatisfied with? Just be a clone. Even if you are a clone, it is a clone with sufficient strength. Are you still worried about any problems on the road? Lord Kurakama, please be careful on the road. Well, don't worry, I will definitely deliver the goods. Under the watchful eyes of a circle of high-level officials and the Jia family, the bruised black god Jiayan pulled up the train with a tired figure, slowly gliding into the depths of the subspace passage. Behind him are endless complex glances. Until the train, which is thousands of kilometers long, enters the depths of the passage and can no longer be seen clearly. Among the many spectators here, only then did a few domain lords look at each other and smiled bitterly. Lord Jiayan is indeed a legendary existence, there is absolutely no way we can compare with him. Others also shook their heads. Originally, they thought that since they were also masters at the domain lord level and following Jiayan in this trade area, they could help solve many problems. However, in fact, most of the problems in the entire trade area over the years have been solved by Jiayan himself. Except for those professionals and ordinary workers who were recruited from their respective forces, they found that their role was just to drink tea and meet and sign autographs with the visiting masters of other forces, without showing any ability to do anything. The importance of being strong. Because the gap between strength and Jiayan is too great. Even the senior domain lord level experts sighed slightly. This trade area has slowly turned into the Jiayan clan. They have less and less say. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3231. God knows how the power of the 5 major galactic central star regions will be compressed after they settle in. By the way, where is my wife? What should I do with my wife? Just when everyone was sighing, Jia 11's confused voice sounded. Jiarong felt that this boy was a little too naive, so he patted his forehead angrily. Bad boy, your wife is still your wife, why are you so nervous? Oh, it's good if it is, it's good if it is. Jia 11 laughed dryly. Chirp, chirp, chirp. A long and distant voice sounded in the mountain forest. And the size of this mountain forest is far beyond the limit that ordinary people can imagine. There are tens of thousands of kilometers of trees everywhere in the mountains and forests, and the winding mountain roads seem to lead to the ends of the earth. An inconspicuous giant mosquito was entrenched in a commercial road vehicle, silently watching the outside scenery. This caravan consists of about 100 carts and is more than 3,000 kilometers long. It stretches for hundreds of thousands of miles and looks quite spectacular. In fact, it is just a small-scale caravan that is extremely common in the mainland. Sir, this wine gets mellower as it gets older. Although it is not expensive, we have been living in the mountains and swamps for many years and have relied on this thing to survive. No one can live without it. A one-eyed member of a suspected giant caravan sat in front of Jiayan. He was not similar in size to the giants on the other side of the island. He was only over 2,000 kilometers away. His body was stooped, but he was very strong. Here in the mainland of the world, the racial divisions are different, And there are many specious races. Jia Yan doesn't know how to call each other's race. I'm afraid he can only call them the place of birth as the main way of calling them in this part of the mainland. Race cannot be divided at all. I have better wine there. I'll get it for you later and try it. Jia Yan stuck out his mouth and drank a drink with the other party. He felt that the wine was mellow in the mouth, but tasted like a completely inferior version of water wine. No flavor whatsoever. That's good. I heard from my buddy that he drank a glass of wine yesterday and it tasted better than wine. Jia Yan nodded and smiled. That's natural. With the technological rolling brewing process, the wines produced casually from the factory are definitely better than most of the wines in the other world. What's more, it's the low-grade wine that ordinary caravan travelers drink. Well, sir, something seems wrong. The one-eyed dragon's eyes quickly became moved, and he raised his head and looked out the carriage window. A large number of giant trees thousands of kilometers high blocked the mountain scenery like a sky and the sun, but it did not prevent him, an expert who had traveled the trade route for many years, from feeling the dangerous atmosphere that the mountains and forests announced to him. As expected of a professional, he can still sense danger. Jia Yan was amazed, and then said calmly, "Don't be nervous, they are probably young people, just let my guards go out." "Sir, there are several groups of bandits in this area, and we all have some dealings with them. Why don't you let me go over and negotiate with them? Please understand that we often take these routes and do not want to have too much trouble with the bandits." Jia Yan hesitated when he heard the words, then nodded calmly after thinking about it. The one-eyed man got out of the carriage. Jia Yan, on the other hand, casually admired the scenery outside the carriage and enjoyed the rare leisurely trip to the inner world. Puff. But then his eyes flashed with light, and he heard an extremely weak killing sound hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Then a large number of strong creatures of various colors appeared on both sides of the road. Bandits! Bandits are here! Where's Leader Xiu? Was he killed? Damn it, Chief Xiu, and we have paid you so much tribute every time, but you are so cruel and ruthless that you will kill them as soon as you ask. The bandits all exuded a fierce aura and looked at the spreading caravan with ferocious smiles. Several of them even looked directly in the direction of Jia Yan's caravan. "We don't want to squander all the benefits, but we can't bear the price someone offers. Haha, do you want us to invite the people from the so-called Galaxy Chamber of Commerce over there, or do you want to come out on your own?" A giant creature about 8,000 kilometers high made a sound. The other bandit creatures also cheered, "Come out! Come out!" They didn't take the mountain merchants in front of them at all. Under normal circumstances, this group of merchants would honestly hand over a lot of their profits as payment for the trip. If a dispute did arise, the bandits would smash into pieces twice as many merchants and run away with just one collision. It's useless for Hongshang to have stronger force. After all, one side is a businessman and the other side is a bandit. They are naturally suppressed by blood. "Boss Jia Yan, look." An old man who formed a caravan came to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce tremblingly. Jia Yan glanced sideways at this person and remembered that this person was the most timid and fearful person since he traveled with their Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. It was said that he started doing business after the big change in his family the year before last. No wonder he was so submissive. That's all. Jia Yan has unique skills, so he has no worries at all. An ordinary bandit would not be in any danger. "Sir, how about I take action later?" Under the carriage, there were several small creatures. It's not that they are really small, but in the other world, they nod like little pets following the car, traveling for kilometers or dozens of kilometers, not even comparable to a small native life. In recent days, Jia Yan and other merchants in the caravan have been jokingly called the dwarf caravan. What information can you get from taking action? It's up to me. Jia Yan shook his head casually and went straight to the front of the entire caravan. Such a little kid. Are you the head of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? The leader of the bandits was still a little surprised. He didn't expect that the targets he wanted to intercept were such small people. I am the president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Dear friends, could you please do me a favor? President? Isn't it very rich? Ha ha ha, it seems that there is no shortage this time. President, tell me how much money you can give. If you give more, we may not let you go. You are one horse. Jia Yan sighed softly. Friends, we can obviously live in harmony, why do you have to kill yourself? Even if the leader no longer understood the convoluted words, he understood that Jia Yan was just mocking them, and he immediately became furious. If you don't eat the toast, you'll be fined with wine. Kill me. A bandit behind him smiled grimly and drew his sword. From his point of view, such a small president who is tens of kilometers high must be cut in two in front of his sword that is hundreds of kilometers away. There is no other possibility. However, at the peak of his confidence, Jia Yan gently raised his foot and blocked the knife with a soft sound. So he's still a master? A Taoist? More than that. The leader's eyes suddenly solidified. Let's go together. It's not like we haven't surrounded and killed Taoist masters before. The reason why bandits scare caravans is precisely because they are professional killers. Sometimes a caravan is twice as strong as the bandits, and it is very likely to be defeated by the bandits in one go. This is the difference in momentum. But today, this bandit team did not expect that they would encounter people who also lived by killing. And the strength of this being far exceeds theirs. The leader's strength is at the high level of the galaxy, and he is just a hair away from reaching the territory lord level. On the Imperial Island, he was destined to be the leader of the city's patrol, but in this area of the mainland, he could only serve as the leader of bandits. It's not that he's not strong enough. After all, it's still possible for a high-ranking Zing to get a mid to high-level position in a small place, but what he lacks is culture and brains. As a result, under fierce competition, he can only sink to the bottom of the mountain. In the wild land, he became a bandit and passed the leader's addiction. Puff. As he spoke, Jia Yan thrust out his foot with arrogance and killed the bandit who dared to raise the blade to him. The second knife struck again. Bandits are really not afraid of death. Even if one of them dies, the people behind him will just sneer, and they will even be more eager for quick success. If they kill the enemy who killed one of their masters, there will definitely be a big reward later, and maybe even a wife. Sir, please leave these little things to us. Suddenly, a small creature from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce couldn't bear it anymore and joined the battle group with great momentum. Jia Yan said that he would handle it by himself, but he did not say that the younger ones also had to deal with it by themselves, which seemed like he was bullying the younger ones. Those subordinates were still considerate, but they suddenly rushed towards those weak beings. This is entry into the Tao. It makes sense for Dao-level masters to go anywhere in the other world. At least their strength is equivalent to that of the galaxy level, and those who have entered the Dao a little deeper are domain lords. The subordinates who rushed out were Dao-level masters, and they all had Dao-level strength. It's equivalent to all being galaxy level or above. In fact, it was normal. He was embarrassed even if the masters brought out by Jia Yan were not at the galaxy level. Otherwise, a dignified lower-ranking territory lord would be embarrassed if he went out with a group of stars. Jia Yan, who was taking the lead, ran into the arms of the bandit leader. His body of more than 60 kilometers was like a toy in front of his body of more than 2,000 kilometers. But this toy was as hard as steel, and one foot was as hard as steel. He stabbed the opponent's heart, causing blood to spurt from his mouth. When he fell to the ground, his eyes were lifeless, and it was obvious that he was gradually losing all color of life. Are you unwilling to die? Let me ask you one last question, who asked you to come and deal with this caravan? The leader's eyes wandered laboriously, and then a sinister smile appeared on his face. He was not grinning ferociously at Jia Yan, but at the person who invited him to do something. The strength of this caravan is so amazing, the employer must have known about it in advance, but they did not disclose any information to themselves, obviously they just wanted to let them die. It's the purple water section, they asked us to do it, the condition is 10 Dao heart fruits. After saying this, he finally died of anger. Purple water sect. Jia Yan looked around and saw the spectacular corpses of mountain bandits hundreds to thousands of kilometers high lying on the ground. He put his feet away and wiped them on the leader's clothes. As if he had done something ordinary, he returned to the location of his caravan with an expressionless face. Sir, who are you? A captain from another caravan cautiously came to Jia Yan, seemingly asking, but also a little wary. Such a powerful master, and not just one, the entire caravan guard has Dao level strength, and only those powerful chambers of commerce in this area of the mainland can possess it. There is something wrong no matter how you think about hanging out with these low-level mud-legged guys. This group of bandits also said that they were here to deal with President Jia Yan. They don't want little people like themselves to eventually become disposable pawns, or to be swept away by the entire army. We are called the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Maybe we are not famous enough in this area. In a few days, you will know how powerful our Chamber of Commerce is. A Galaxy Master who turned around took over Jia Yan's words. Jia Yan looked non-committally at the caravans he had affected. Several caravans among them had already died under the blades of bandits just like the one he had been drinking with earlier. After thinking about it, he said with compassion, I'm sorry that you have been affected by this incident. Let's do this. I will offer compensation in gold and silver to the family of the deceased. Secondly, all caravans present will hold franchise certificates. Don't rush to reject the qualifications for the Chamber of Commerce's products. After some time, you will know what this business right represents. Oh, thank you, President. Several other caravan leaders were not interested in this so-called business right. After all, they were businessmen and they needed no franchise. But they were also afraid that Jia Yan was hiding a knife behind his smile. If they didn't give him a little face, those fierce dwarfs might point their swords at them in the next moment. Facing the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which easily wiped out even bandits, they really couldn't resist at all. Perhaps this group of caravan members who don't take it seriously now will be extremely lucky in the future because they made the right choice. I am even more fortunate to be involved in this incident. Otherwise, under ordinary circumstances, it is extremely difficult to obtain the franchise rights of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Even some forces, in the name of power, offer a large amount of wealth and sign countless terms to obtain this so-called franchise. Franchise? You read a book? Sir. Jia Yan returned to the carriage. Soon the bandits' bodies and supplies were all disposed of, and someone got on the carriage. How? This mountainous area is indeed as rumored, and the folk customs are fierce. Most of these bandits are just nearby villagers, but when a caravan passed by, they changed their clothes and brought weapons to intercept the road. Well, then you can evaluate how likely it is to open up this trade route and protect the safety of the mountain road, and how high the cost is. Write a detailed report. Honor your orders. The subordinate exited the carriage. Jia Yan sat on the carriage very comfortably, took out a Dao heart fruit, and slowly began to devour it. In the past 2 days, he felt that his energy flowed out quickly like running water at a certain moment, almost causing some impact on his true body's cultivation. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3232. Fortunately, the impact was not serious and he recovered quickly. He knew that there must be something wrong with the Black God clone. Only the Black God clone that devoured a large amount of his energy and mental power could cause him such a huge deficit. The other clones were far behind. Maybe something went wrong over there in the Milky Way, but now I can't leave, so it must be fine, otherwise, I would have known about the clone's death. Jia Yan also knows that the Milky Way seems to be his own territory, but the dangers inside are no less dangerous than this strange inner world. After all, there are many powerful forces in the galaxy. It is quite unrealistic for him who has mastered the passage of the other world to monopolize all the benefits there. If there really is any super large force in the central galaxy, or a super master with similar strength to Jia Yan himself, it will definitely greatly affect the work and trade in the trade zone. I think Black God should also have a sense of proportion. When things cannot be done, they should give up certain benefits. There is no need to communicate these words. Originally, the Black God Jia Yan was Jia Yan himself, and the two parties still needed to communicate, so they became two independent personalities. He really knows that the Black God Jia Yan's handling of these incidents is not much worse than his own, except for the difference in strength. But in terms of strength, I'm not too worried. With the back UPS prepared before, I'm afraid it's not impossible for ordinary masters of the lower level domain masters to draw a tie with Black God. Jia Yan thought about it and decided that there was no need to worry. Moreover, his true form is now deep in the coast of the mainland, so even if he is worried, there is nothing he can do. It's better to let go of your mind, don't think about things over there, and just believe in the Black God Jia Yan. Then he opened the map of this mountainous forest area and couldn't help but sigh again. It's impossible not to sigh. The imperial dynasty had already seen the horror of the mountains and forests in the other world, but after coming to the mainland, they realized that they had underestimated the scale of the other world. This mountainous area is roughly half the size of the imperial dynasty. Even with Jia Yan's ability, it would take several years to just fly. Of course, the strong have their own way of traveling, and the local merchants here also have their own way of traveling. For example, walking along various official roads, or trade routes that merchants can see, and so on. Countless ordinary people will never leave this mountain forest throughout their lives. The Purple Water sect is located in this mountain forest. It belongs to the middle and upper reaches of the mountain forest. Compared with the imperial dynasty, it is definitely stronger than the royal family. In other words, there may be more powerful people than the founder. Jia Yan did not brag about his founding strength. Now, decades later, he is no longer afraid of it. Not to mention a devastating defeat, at least it can be easily killed within 100 moves. If desperate measures are used, such as subspace or explosives, instant kill is not an exaggeration. The visitor from the outer universe told me that the Purple Water sect had what I needed, but now the Purple Water sect has used troops against me first. I'm afraid that the Purple Water sect has also learned the information. In fact, Jia Yan could completely give up those so-called weapon fragments. There are not many other things in the mainland, but there are a terrifying amount of rare treasures. There are also various things of enlightenment, etc., added up. It is enough for Jia Yan to lie in the mainland branch without worrying about eating and drinking for a long time. But he didn't really come to the mainland to enjoy himself. This area was large enough and scary enough. He could either explore some of the secrets himself before the two sides were at war with each other, or he could take the opportunity to improve his own strength. Lord Jia Yan, the local spies that Zishui sect sent there first have lost information. Oh? Are they really already on guard against us? Not long after the caravan continued its journey, a subordinate came to report with urgent military information. Jia Yan had already confirmed that his whereabouts had been discovered by the other party. Not only that, the Purple Water sect has even entangled many nearby sects, and looks like it is about to form an alliance. Although this attitude is not stronger than the Coastal Alliance, it is not much worse. Jia Yan pondered. The Zishui sect, without distinguishing right from wrong, prepared to go against the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in a big way. It was by no means that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was terrible. He calmly picked up a large amount of information. After reading it carefully, he found out in one of the information that there had been a relatively violent outsider turmoil in the mountainous area where the Purple Water sect was located. That turmoil lasted for hundreds of years, and entire sects in the mountainous area were destroyed. After watching it intently for a while, Jia Yan sighed, "No wonder they are like this. If it were our galaxy, if it had been ravaged by outsiders, it would definitely be as afraid of outsiders as snakes and scorpions. Much like the islands, since there are many extraterrestrial visitors in the mainland, they are destined to encounter those who are at the peak of their strength. From the research of recorded data, the strength of the extraterrestrial visitors who once wreaked havoc on the Purple Water sect may have exceeded that of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, perhaps even 2 or 3 times more powerful. They are so wary of me, so let's go ahead and launch our efforts in the neighboring areas. After all, this mountain forest is so huge, they can't be affected everywhere." Jia Yan didn't force it. The twisted melon is not sweet. If the situation is not suitable, he will not go. He still has this decisiveness. And it cannot be said that there is no chance of finding fragments in the nearby areas. It is possible that they will be found. For the natives of the other world, those broken weapons and strange objects containing the power of perception are not as useful as these alien visitors. As long as they are willing to pay the price, the possibility of obtaining their transactions is still very high. Otherwise, the mainland is a treasure land. Jia Yan and the others had only left for 2 days when they traded a rare artifact of enlightenment with a mountain force that they settled in. It is a brick. It is said that it has stood for 100,000 years in this small and downtrodden force. Since I don't know what year and month, this brick, which was originally the bottom of the ancient city wall, has emitted light at night. At first it was still very dim, then became brighter and brighter, and finally, it was dug out. It had been stored in the treasure house of a wealthy family for hundreds of years. At this time, the descendants of the wealthy family were in poverty. The Galaxy caravan happened to be passing by, so he thought of giving it a try and offered it up, hoping to exchange it for another good price. Unexpectedly, the price was really obtained. The price was so high that the other party was stunned and almost mistakenly thought that this thing was such an earth-shattering treasure and was unwilling to sell it. But at that time, he felt some kind of strong murderous intent, so he happily conducted a transaction with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce on the premise of being extremely friendly and relaxed, and willing to give in. Soon, he disappeared without a trace. This brick really has a lot of enlightenment, which is comparable to the most common enlightenment objects in the galaxy. The branch cut off last time was not even 1% of the power of the enlightened thing. This brick has more bricks. Jia Yan absorbed the power of perception in brick, as if he saw the morning sun rising every day, and saw countless lives passing by him, many of which were sprinkled on him. Ahem, he realized it by himself. In short, after absorbing the power from this brick, he felt refreshed. This is someone's initiative to trade. If we publicize the need for this thing, maybe more people will come to our door. There are so many things to comprehend in this world, which opened Jia Yan's eyes. In other words, there are a lot of enlightenment things in the mainland. Jia Yan stayed on the island for so long, but did not gain anything. Or maybe there are some, but the number is not as good as in the mainland, so they have not been exposed to them. This method of obtaining treasures without losing any blood is one of the main reasons why I established a caravan. He was content. In the past, when was it possible to obtain a treasure without working hard or through various strategies and tricks? But using the transaction method is much easier. It can be seen that Ji Qiao and Chu Xin have been relying on the mainland all day long. After so many years, they have definitely reaped a lot of benefits. Jia Yan was not complacent, because he knew that this was just their first time here, and people in the other world didn't know how important the benefits contained in these rare objects were to outsiders. As long as the prices were raised, it would be impossible to get them again. So easy. Please spread the news. Our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is purchasing rare items on a large scale. Of course, at the same time, we are also purchasing some items that are of high value in the other world to confuse the public. Yes. Jia Yan's trip was not only to complete the few things he had promised others, but also to play a role in protecting the spread of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in the mainland. In these mountainous and forested areas along the way, he eliminated dangers for his subordinates one by one. He would also visit the particularly powerful masters one by one. Those who were not strong enough would give them a blow, and those who were strong enough would just drink tea seriously. Have a chat, and then show the other party some of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's excellent products to appreciate. After gaining enough willingness to buy, mention the matter of opening up business routes. With the endorsement of his strength, this journey has been smooth sailing. During this caravan trip, they randomly joined the group halfway and would leave the group when they reached the next area. In this way, about a month passed. 1 month was enough for another normal exchange of trains and personnel on the island, but Jia Yan did not receive any more danger reminders from his clone. This means that the confrontation that caused the clones to be in danger the month before last has no aftermath. He was much relieved. But I can't delay it for a long time. I must return in 2 months at most. Otherwise, if there is a real enemy in the trade area and there is no lower level territory lord sitting in charge, I am afraid it will still be in danger. Within a month, Jia Yan obtained 2 more impressive treasures, both of which were objects of enlightenment. No more fragments of weapons or other objects from the outside world appeared. However, in the past few months, visitors from outside the world came to visit Jia Yan and his party from time to time. These guys, under the guise of being fellow villagers, hide their knives in their smiles. Some are quite powerful, while others are as powerful as the flowers and plants on the roadside, but they all have their own plans. Mr. President, the so-called lips are dead and the teeth are cold. We are all powerful men from the universe. If you need us, we will give you the secrets of our universe. We don't want much, either shelter, or give us something lower than the normal price for material transactions, just treat it as you're doing a good job, supporting our local activities, and striving to gain more living space for our cosmic creatures, okay. On this day, the same words came to Jia Yan's ears again. Jia Yan's ears were really pricking when he heard it, and his whole body shook involuntarily, and the other party was knocked out of his car. Never put a guy like this in my car again. Yes. The guard outside the door, who was also a domain lord level expert, nodded indifferently. You bastard. We, the Beikai Galaxy, are the masters of dozens of major galaxy alliances. Your little galaxy dares to reject us. Be careful, I will attack your galaxy in the future and destroy you 10,000 times. The guy who was kicked out began to curse, but his voice quickly died down, and with a few muffled blows, he completely died down. Jia Yan specifically asked not to kill anyone, presumably just to cause the other party a little pain. After a while, Jia Yan finally remembered casually. It seems that there are definitely a lot of these so-called outsiders. The ones I have seen so far are all weak. Except for the few who first came to the branch to meet me, there are some senior domain lord level existences. All the people encountered on the road are this kind of stuff. This does not mean that these so-called outsiders are not strong enough. On the contrary, since they have both weak and strong ones, it means that there are definitely a lot of them in the local area. This was the first time that Jia Yan felt that there were such a large number of life forms from the universe. He also thought that his Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was unique, but judging from this situation, I'm afraid that was not the case. That is to say, there may be outsider forces established by some subspace geniuses in the vast continent. Of course, the laws of the outer universe are different from those of the Milky Way. Maybe their talents are in the crack space, or black hole talent or something. In short, they are all things that can enter the other world. Then, the relationship between these existences and us needs to be carefully considered. Jia Yan has no grass and trees but all soldiers, but we will not leave these potentially powerful opponents alone. There is no friendship between the two parties, and there cannot be any hostility, but since they are both from the outer universe, these space people, using the fact that he is also a visitor from the universe to establish friendship, and then make demands, may have similar thoughts. There won't be a few, and if you meet one or two people with extraordinary strength, I'm afraid the lion will open its mouth wide and bite them all because they are fellow villagers. You still can't travel freely to the outside world. If, like Jia Yan, he was able to travel to the outside world, the requirements might be different. It is very likely that they will also connect to the Milky Way through their own abilities, and then pose a sufficient threat to the Milky Way. This is not impossible to happen. Being prepared for danger in times of peace is the most basic element of a strong person. Before the local threats come, the threats from these fellow countrymen will be launched first, right? Jia Yan's worries are not without purpose. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3233. In fact, just when Jia Yan was thinking about this possibility in the deep mountains and old forests, a master from the coastal area of the mainland knocked on the office door of the person in charge of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, Vice President Chuxing. Who? I don't seem to have heard the report coming from below. Did you come in uninvited? Chuxing's face turned gloomy as he looked at the guy who looked like a glowing octopus floating outside his door. This guy doesn't look like a native creature at first glance, because such a guy with extremely strong science fiction elements can only be easily born in the universe. Yes, I came in uninvited. I want to see you. The other octopus made a sound from its mouth, which was like an electronic synthesized sound. It was very weird and the sound was a bit funny. Meeting me is not just something you want to see. There is no formal announcement or greetings. I'm sorry, but please go out and finish these before coming back. Chu Xing could have taken action directly and captured the opponent in the name of an intruder, but after feeling the power fluctuations in the opponent's body, he swallowed this idea very keenly. A bit strong. Negative, negative, I want to see you, I want to communicate with you, I want you to join forces, we want to rule this continent. Ill. Chuxing felt a little headache. Recently, there have been more and more similar visitors from outer space. It seems that they know the existence of their Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and those originally inconspicuous people from the universe have appeared in swarms. No, I am in good health. If you don't want to join forces, please just say so. I don't want to. Chuxing shook his head inexplicably. I saw dozens of tentacles of the octopus monster waving wildly. In this world, there is natural selection. If you are unwilling to cooperate, die, die. It's you that damn it. Chu Xing's face was as gloomy as water, and a power was brewing in his body. But after a while, boom! A massive explosion erupted in the vast area of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce branch that suffered an unparalleled disaster. Chu Xing was knocked into the sky, and his eyes were no longer filled with anger, but rather frightened. So strong. But no matter how strong he is still a powerful lunatic. It is impossible for Chu Xing to admit defeat. You don't want to cooperate with you, so you take action? Then you have made the wrong calculation. Chuxing laughed angrily and continued to fight with the monster. On the Imperial Island. On this day, Black God Jia Yan once again completed his transportation mission and returned to the Xiancheng area. How is my daughter doing recently? Let me check the information. Black God Jia Yan picked up the intelligence letter specifically mentioning Jia Makiao and read it calmly. As Jia Yan's child, no one would think that sending her out for training would really have no protective power, right? In fact, Jia Makiao's protective measures would make it difficult for even a master level to kill him in a short time. This little girl is really doing a good job. Jia Makiao went to a city that was outside the influence of Xiancheng but also had great influence from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. There are still city lords in that area, as well as a complete government team belonging to the dynasty. However, while the skeleton of the entire city is still there, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has slowly swallowed up all aspects. The people have seen the large amount of materials and products delivered by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and have seen the ideology in the cultural industry. Countless young people have begun to wake up and want to get something they want. Why are the emperors and upper-class family members born to be at the top? Do princes and generals like Xiangning have the guts? These remarks were made in the city not only in broad daylight, but also in private. It will only break out at a critical juncture, and then it will be easy for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to completely control the entire city. This little girl is currently engaged in secret activities and has gathered many small creatures together. Jia Makiao's choice was necessary and smart. There are an astonishing number of small creatures in any city in the dynasty, and they are not officially recognized by the dynasty. Their status is like small creatures on the roadside, but they are intelligent, and there are many masters in a broad sense. Perhaps they are better than others. There are hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the official residents of the Shang dynasty, but they are definitely a force that cannot be ignored. The most critical point is that small creatures are not taken seriously or even ignored. If such a force is first gathered, it will not be easily noticed by the imperial officials. Moreover, these small creatures are born with the values promoted by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. They continue to ordinary people cannot obtain the status, so they will definitely be willing to go through life and death for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce that gives them these statuses. In fact, Xiancheng has done an excellent job in this regard. The people in the nearby city have already spread the word crazily. Even small creatures are looking forward to the dawn, looking forward to the day when the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will also rule their city. Jia Makiao is faced with such a city. To put it bluntly, Jia Yan wanted her to go there for training. He couldn't really give her a hell-level place. That wasn't training, it was killing her daughter. Even if there will be real troublesome places for her to work in the future, it is not now. She still lacks practical experience. Well, not only did it hone her abilities in government affairs, but she even got a real combat opportunity. A government officer with a small investigation sent dozens of patrols to arrest her. In a situation where she was almost desperate, she started a game with the enemy. Fight, kill more than half of them, and force the other party to flee. Isn't this great? Jia Makiao is very smart and calm, but Jia Yan's own family knows their daughter. Xiao Nizai is still a little timid. At this time, after experiencing 3 or 2 official battles and seeing blood, I can truly discover the calmness in my character and become an intellectual and stable little girl. Sir, do you want me to send someone over to support Miss Ichiban in her work? No, let the city let her do it. When it can be effective, let her come back. Yes. The subordinates stopped asking. After all, everyone knows that that one is just the princess who used to be gilded. Jia Yan looked at Wu Pilei, who had been guarding the door and was doing her duty faithfully but eavesdropping. He couldn't help laughing and said, Miss Wu Pilei, if you want to know the information about the sisters, you can come and take a look. Ah. I didn't, no, thank you sir. Wu Pilei was shocked and embarrassed, but she still had the courage to step forward and picked up several pieces of detailed information to read. These pieces of information detailed the actions of Mosquito and several subordinate female warriors. In several of these battles, the female warriors of the small human race who were bound to be unlucky were saved by Mosquito and escaped. At least so far, no one has died. Minor injuries are certainly unavoidable. After reading the information, Wupila felt relieved and let out a long sigh of relief. In fact, she was speechless. Miss Mosquito, like her father Yan, has a weird hobby of letting small humans like them join the battle. From ancient times to the present, small humans have not been a race that is good at fighting. Sure enough, like father, like daughter? Wupila put down the information in her hand and was about to leave, but Black God Yan looked at her and asked calmly, "How is it? Have you achieved any results after practicing the new cultivation technique?" Wupila paused, then quickly continued to sit down, nodded and said, "Master Yan, I practiced the combat skills you gave me, and it actually has some effects, but the effects are not as powerful as you said." "Oh, that's it, I understand. You can go back and continue to practice hard. When you have a breakthrough, remember to tell me immediately." Black God Yan nodded. Wupila retreated, and the domain lord level expert next to him looked at Yan with some suspicion. He seemed to want to ask something. "You want to ask why I teach a resident of the other world, right?" "Yes, sir, I'm a little curious. Your cultivation skills are definitely something that everyone in our galaxy is eager for, but you don't teach a small human woman from a world with different laws, despite so many geniuses in the galaxy. And since we want results in such a short period of time, my subordinates have some reasons to be curious." Yan shook his head calmly. "Short time? Actually, it's not short." The people next to him opened their mouths strangely, wanting to say something. Because he personally watched Yan give Wupila the new cultivation method. Calculating the time, no matter how long it is, it will only be a few months. Isn't this short? The cultivation skills of a late-level domain lord are so vast. Even if he is a genius domain lord level master, if he is allowed to practice Yan's cultivation skills, it will be difficult to get started even if it takes several months. A small human woman who is not strong enough and comes from a place with different laws like the other world. Yan didn't wait for him to ask questions and continued to answer questions. "What you think is short is because this woman has only received my training skills for a few months, but, what if she has been practicing my unique skills for hundreds of years?" "Hundreds of years?" This. The other party was stunned. He wanted to say that Yan was talking nonsense, but he held back the words. Even if Yan is talking nonsense, he can't say it in front of others. Due to his reputation as a strong man, Yan might not say anything at the time, but there is a high chance that he will give you some slack afterwards. This is the way to be a human being. Haha, you don't think that's the case, right? But in fact, it's really the case. In fact, many people are guessing that I did it long before the trade zone was built, or even before I explored the other world with the two vice presidents. Without the knowledge and insights of the other world, it would be impossible to quickly establish the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce after entering the other world for the first time, and even build a bridge with the Imperial dynasty. In fact, these guesses are correct. The genius territory lord's expression was so fierce that he was dumbfounded. What many people were speculating about, he actually heard the person involved confirm it himself. How could he not be surprised? Actually, there is nothing to hide. Even now, I am not afraid to say it. I have been to the other world as early as 100 years ago. Some high-level officials in the spirit realm should have guessed this. Speaking of which, the accidental entrance has something to do with them, so maybe this is called no acquaintance without fighting. Yan smiled, but at that time, I was not a top expert. Even if I was left in this world, even ordinary small creatures in the mountains and forests could kill me. At that time, there was a small human race, it gave me a lot of help and allowed me to initially stabilize here. The genius domain master's expression moved slightly and asked, could it be that little human race? Jia Yan gave an affirmative look, yes, they are the little human race of Wu Pilot. They have been living together in Zihao Forest for countless generations. If it weren't for their help, I might have died in this Zihao Forest. The genius domain master let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, a mystery is solved. Why is Master Jia Yan so at home in this world? I see. Is that so? In that case, does Miss Wu Pilot also have an old relationship with you? More than just old things, Jia Yan said with a smile, she was the first intelligent life I met when I came to the other world, and she was the one who took me to her tribe. Later, I reciprocated and gave her a lot of cultivation help, and many of the original core cultivation skills were unintentionally left behind. The genius domain lord sighed. There is such a story in it. So it is understandable that Jia Yan now asks Wu Pilot to follow Jia Yan and practice the more advanced cultivation skills that Jia Yan has matured over 100 years. As a strong person, he must also want to know whether people in the other world can practice the cosmic cultivation method from the Milky Way. Whether it succeeds or not, there must be a result. Afterwards, targeted research and certain conclusions can be made. After all, this kind of thing is connected. If they can, then people in the galaxy can definitely practice the advanced skills of the other world. It seems that Jia Yan and the others have mastered a lot of skills in the other world, such as absorbing Taoist heart, cultivating Taoist power, etc., but to be honest, no one has reached a high level yet. Jia Yan himself may have entered a good level, but he didn't say it, so naturally no one knew. Haha, Miss Wu Pilot seems to be unaware of you. It seems that the person who met her was Mr. Giant Mosquito, so she doesn't know you. The genius domain master suddenly understood all the key points, and smiled as he felt that the black god Jia Yan in front of him was still flesh and blood, because in Wu Pilot's attitude, it can be seen that Lord Jia Yan, the black god, seems to be hiding the truth with a bit of joking attitude. Who wouldn't like such a top master who has flesh and blood, protects his weaknesses, and is extremely powerful? Thinking that he had been personally saved by Jia Yan before, the genius domain master's admiration for Jia Yan was like knowing the waves of a river. Okay, don't tell Wu Pilot about this in advance. I'm afraid that after she finds out, she will think that I have an old relationship with her and will not go all out in cultivation, which will affect the final research results. As commanded. The genius domain master straightened his face and quickly bowed his head in response. All joking aside, if you really think that the best masters have no temper, that is the real way to die. By the way, my lord, I have something else to tell you. This genius domain master came to meet the black god Jia Yan because he had something really important to do. After chatting for a while about gossip and other idle queens, he got down to business. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3234. Generally not urgent matters, Black God Jia Yan prefers a relatively slow pace. It is said that the underground world is about to move, and the rebels in the north are also making bigger moves, but we have no role in it. I suspect that other forces have reached out. Oh, Black God Jia Yan frowned and asked, are they those overseas visitors? After the guests from the mainland came to the dynasty, the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce knew that the vast area of the dynasty was actually just a small island in people's mouths. In addition to mainland guests, there are endless small islands throughout the world. These people are all classified as overseas visitors in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. After all, regarding overseas, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce cannot get much information from the dynasty, so it is also a situation of blindness. No. Although the number of overseas visitors has gradually increased recently, they are far from affecting the large local forces. A strange look appeared on Jia Yan's eyebrows, and he couldn't help but ask, "It's neither overseas visitors nor ourselves. Could it be someone from within the dynasty who did it? But it's also possible." The genius domain master shook his head and said, "No, sir, those who are making small moves are the visitors from outside the world besides us." Black God Jia Yan's heart skipped a beat. Extraterrestrial visitors? Don't you think that these guys have been making too many little moves lately? Black God Jia Yan keenly felt that there was something unusual in this, but after thinking about it, he couldn't figure out what was wrong. Grown-ups. On the second day, several caravan masters, bleeding profusely, returned in embarrassment. They carry wounds of varying severity. Who was hurt? This situation is not unprecedented, but has happened many times recently. If the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce wants to integrate into the Imperial Dynasty area, the process will definitely not only involve a welcome, but also a military encounter with strong hostility. Moreover, many of the attacks were unidentified events, and a large number of masters sacrificed their lives or even lost their bodies during these processes. Masters from the Milky Way galaxy and below had a very high loss rate, which was also the reason why many workers in the trade area were discouraged. But there are always people who are not afraid of death. After all, Jia Yan and the others are willing to give too much, not to mention the endless adventures and benefits in the other world. The masters who returned this time suffered a lot of injuries, and about 10% of their damage was lost. In the view of Black God Jia Yan, the damage should be considered a daily occurrence, without too many accidents. But the answers given by these people surprised Jia Yan. Although the ones who did it were concealed from others, we think they should be masters from other galaxies. Jia Yan's calm face changed slightly. Are these guys from the galaxy again? Why are their active movements getting bigger and bigger? And there are other, even weirder places. It would be fine if they were guys from a certain galaxy and they suddenly made a move. But judging from this situation, it seems that their activities happen together at the same time. There must be some information that I don't have. Black God Jia Yan's eyes were shining brightly. All along, these so-called extraterrestrial visitors have always been in their attention. But this didn't mean that Jia Yan ignored them. Compared to the mystery of the other world, he prefers to believe that the strong men of other galaxies in the universe are more terrifying and threatening. Previously, they seemed harmless in Jia Yan's eyes, but there must have been something he overlooked. They can't be so unified and cover up, there must be something we haven't noticed. Black God Jia Yan's face darkened. The injured should go back and recuperate. I will take you out on my next trip. The deceased will also be compensated. Secondly, give me 10 times more manpower. I will know the motives and reasons of these extraterrestrial visitors within a week. The subordinates were a little surprised by Jia Yan's attitude as if he were facing a formidable enemy, but they still obeyed the order. Outside the trade zone, the alliance of 5 major forces is back again. This round trip took them only 2 months. Each major force has its own trump card and background. It is not shocking news to go back and forth between the trade area and the central galaxy within 2 months. This time back, not only a few more crucial and important people came. Important supplies were also brought. There are even rumors that among the 5 major forces, the later level powers of territory lords will appear one by one in a few days. Yes, the 5 major forces do business fairly and equitably with the trade zone, and the ultimate purpose of trading and exchanges is to enter the other world. Products and benefits, in fact, people don't think much of them at all. As the superpowers of the central star region of the galaxy, their products and interests far exceed those of the trade area. Moreover, if they want to benefit, there are definitely more ways to do so. If they really show their ability, the trade area is small. They have a way to take away more than 90% of the production in a bloodless way, and it is only a matter of a few words to exploit this trade area. However, they still carried out normal exchanges with the trade zone, and also sent methods such as marriage, which had an extremely strong political atmosphere. The whole reason is that they are prepared to make good friends with the Geo family who dominate the trade area, and then use the friendly resources in their hands to send people into the other world. I have met several seniors, but my father and clone are not here. This time I am the only one here to welcome you. How polite. The Geo family is one of our own after marrying with my 5-power alliance. Why are you so polite? Haha, we are guests from afar, so we still have to pay attention to some etiquette issues. I wonder if you are here to stay for a long time, or to inspect the trade area. When this time comes, we are really prepared to stay here for a long time, but please rest assured, nephew Jiasien, we will not interfere with any activities in the trade zone, and we will even send part of our force as a defense force in the trade zone. Before we go, when we came here, we found that the defense force in your trading area was a little thin. I wonder if your nephew would mind our intervention. If so, we can replace these people at any time. Of course, I don't mind. My father said before he left that the 5 major alliances are our own. He was just about to mention the defense change to you. That's good, then we can take over with peace of mind. Please ask my nephew to help with these formalities. Okay. Inside the trade area, at some point, many new faces from the central star field of the Milky Way quietly arrived. They showed the arrogant faces of a large region. Although they were not arrogant, they also made many local people feel uncomfortable. But generally speaking, the previous marriage and the fight between the Black God clone and the highly talented person in the space had formed an unbreakable relationship between the two parties. After all, no one could break the status quo. Under such a strange situation, the two sides gradually merged into one, and those people from the 5 major forces barely entered the cultural system of the trade zone. Both sides are learning from each other. Under such circumstances, the arrival of another group of experts broke the tranquility and made the entire trade zone feel frightened and uneasy. It was a team led by a master whose aura sounded like an unfathomable abyss. The rest of the people are not his subordinates. Most of them seem to have equal status with him, but they are just led by this master. Each breath is either calm, violent, or volcanic. But no matter who they are, they all have the ability to destroy heaven and earth with just one move. This is actually a top-notch team composed of domain masters and lower-level masters. The number is 6. This time, even Jiarong was not confident enough to meet this group of experts. So, after a lot of discussion, someone in the trading area finally proposed to invite Lord Rita and Lord Edisha, who were sitting deep in the subspace. These two are the most core figures in Jia Yan's direct lineage, and they are also very powerful. When they meet the 6 masters, they are sincere and will not have the momentum like Jiarong to be completely outcompeted. Soon, a huge palace flew out of the subspace. This palace, which is the size of an ordinary Earth-like planet, is indeed not too embarrassing. Even if the opponent arrives with a super spaceship as huge as 2 Earth-like planets, it is not too far behind. Leda has met all the seniors. I didn't know that the seniors are here today, and I am a bit disappointed in greeting them. Please forgive me. Adisha has met all the seniors. Leda's unique black god appearance, and now he has cultivated extremely advanced power of formations, and has a somewhat similar temperament to Jia Yan, which makes him look like a fairy. Adisha turned into a girl of 13 or 14 years old, wearing clothes that belonged to a fairy. Her entire appearance had completely changed. Unless someone told her, no one would think that she was the same cheerful little brain. The 6 masters lined up in a line, silently sizing up the 2 people who came out to greet them. Some looked at them with disdain, while others ignored them. After all, for these 6 masters, the 2 in front of them seemed to be the most suitable ones in the entire trade area to welcome them, but they are still too weak. Especially for Edisha, it only fluctuates up and down the galaxy level, which is a bit too weak. As for Leda, after the superposition of the power of the formation, his external strength level has reached about the middle level of a domain lord, just short of the strength of a senior domain lord. With this little strength, even the guard captain they brought it's not as good as anything, so naturally it's not taken too seriously. But at any rate, they also know that the strength of this trade zone is just that. Moreover, the two people in front of him are the right-hand men of Jia Yan according to the intelligence, so they are indeed not hiding these masters. Thank you both for welcoming me. I wonder if there will be a chance to enter the other world in the near future. These people are obviously investigating good information. Black God Jia Yan will arrive with a train in 2 days, and they will be able to take the train to enter the other world. But they didn't know whether this trading area, which seemed to have a lot of rules, would reject them because of the sudden incident, so they deliberately came earlier. It can be regarded as giving Jia Yan some face, otherwise the 6 masters will come together. They believe that no matter how powerful Jia Yan is, with the strength of their 6 masters, Jia Yan is alone, even if they include the possible first-timers. Xing and Jiji may not be their opponents. Of course, they don't want to see things come to that point. The mystery of the other world, as well as the skills of entering and exiting the other world, etc., are all controlled by the trade area. They are unwilling to start a fight unless it is absolutely necessary. If you seniors are interested, we will make arrangements for you. Leda responded calmly. This was originally included in the terms, so it was natural to agree to them. Then just wait for the good news. The powerful men all nodded with satisfaction, then entered the trade area and checked into the accommodation they had prepared long ago. While waiting for the black god Jia Yan to go out, the entire trade area began a new round of movements. But it's not a bad change. But in a sense, the entire trading area was happy. Jia 11, a direct descendant of the Jia family, will tie the knot with the powerful Princess Xiando from the central star region of the Milky Way the next time Jia Yan's avatar goes out, and the marriage will be accomplished. This incident immediately overshadowed the hustle and bustle caused by the arrival of many powerful people. Countless new residents of the trade area were overjoyed. The media also deliberately lowered the news of the arrival of many experts from the 5 major alliances under the instruction, publicizing the recent news of the trade area. A major event in the past 10 years. A large number of immigrants began to immigrate to the trade area. The Earthlings who took root and the businessmen from the Orion arm were simply overjoyed. They were the most excited people in the entire trade area. Many residents of other trading areas may not be allergic to the direct descendants of the Jia family, but they also believe that the trading area after the marriage with the 5 major forces will be more stable, and they are happy to see this happen. As a result, with everyone happy to see the outcome, the preparations for the wedding went smoothly and received unanimous help from all parties. I'm going to get married. It's so unreal. My aunt is coming too. It seems that my great-grandfather and grandma also want to come, but the journey is far away, so my aunt and the others stopped me. That's it, a lot of family members are coming this time. Jia 11 was in her bedroom. She was jumping up and down and couldn't sleep at all. He was taken out of the other world by Jia Yan last time, and together with his father Jia Rong, the strength of the 2 father and son has improved a lot now. But paired with Xiando, who already has stellar strength, Jia 11's own family knows her own affairs, so he is a little behind. If it weren't for her family background, if others hadn't asked for a wife from the Jia family, for such a beautiful, powerful wife with a terrifying family background, he, Jia 11, might not be able to wait for him even if he waited for another 1,000 years. I was so nervous that I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in the middle of the night, thinking about whether I could win over my wife, and what I would do if my wife and I didn't get along. I also thought about who should I help if there were problems in the future, and there were conflicts in the family backgrounds of both parties. I am even worried that there will be no changes in the wedding in a few days. Everything is like a dream. You kid, why don't you be so stupid and just get married?